Ride Boundless podcast. Thank you for hosting.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, anytime. Like I was saying, I'm very interested of having you on because you've done so many cool things. Your social media is blowing up. You ride motorcycles. You skydive. You do acting. You do so many things. So I want to start off with, how do you introduce yourself, and how did you get into motorcycles?
Oh my gosh, I have 14 years of motorcycle experience, so there's a lot to be covered. But what was your first question? Is how I got into
How do you
motorcycles.
introduce yourself? So when you meet people, your social media, where can they find you, etc. And then how did you get into bikes? Like, what was your first experience? Was it a family thing? Like, how did it come along?
Well, my name is Mizziel. A lot of people are kind of confused when they see my Instagram because the way you spell my name is very, it doesn't really make sense phonetically.
Yeah.
So I have two Z's in my name, but it's pronounced like SH. So whenever I introduce myself, I say, oh, it's your shell, not my shell. So everyone always gets a kick out of that. Anyway, so yeah, nobody in my family rides. I'm like the only
So this is all you.
No.
I'm pointing at the helmets and stuff.
So yeah, basically, yeah, it's half my boyfriend's, but
Okay.
yeah. So I'm kind of like the black sheep of the family. So
the badass.
well, yes and no. It's I kind of have grown up in a very strict Asian Christian setting. So no, they kind of looked down on motorcycles a little bit because it was very dangerous, and it was just very out of nowhere, nobody in my family rides. Sorry, I'm gonna just do this.
No, all good. We're hanging out.
Yeah, she's like my BFF. But yeah, I've always, since I was a little girl, I've always loved anything on two wheels. So I loved riding bicycles, and it wasn't long before I got off training wheels. My parents kind of put me on them for a long time, but I remember thinking in my head I don't need these. I want to kind of try balancing.
Let me go, yeah.
Yeah, and I always had a fascination with balancing and things like that. So then I watched as I got older, I watched the Tomb Raider movies, and Lara Croft became my idol. I fell in love with her. I loved that she was super independent.
Which one? The Angelina Jolie one?
Yeah, the one with Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
So, as I was growing up, I always had a fascination of with two wheels. And once I, again, started riding bicycles, I was so excited to ride on two wheels. And then I started seeing two wheels with a motor, and I was like, that's really cool. You could go way faster, it's such a little girl, but I saw motorcycles on the street, and I was like, that's really cool. And so again, when I watched Tomb Raider, she rode motorcycles, she traveled the world, she spoke different languages. She was just this cool, really cool chick. So I kind of have always, looked up to her and molded my life to be like that. And I feel today, that's kind of where I'm at. I've learned, that's what I studied in college, is I learned languages, I traveled the world, I've been to 19 different countries and counting.
Wow.
And there's just a lot.
So we'll continue on the bike, and I want to hear about your travels too. I've traveled to, I don't know how many countries, but I've traveled quite a bit. So what was your first motorcycle?
Oh my gosh, I had a 2007 Suzuki GS500.
That was your first one?
Yeah, my I still have it till this day. It's really hard for me to get rid of all my bikes.
So you have your first bike?
Yes, I do.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I kind of have a lot of sentimental attachment to all my bikes.
Yeah.
So I haven't really gotten rid of any. The only one that I've really gotten rid of was my BMW R9T, because it got hit by a drunk driver and it's just completely totaled. And there was just no way for me to save her. It just wouldn't make sense, because I would have to really come out of pocket. Plus, anyway, the reason why I have Athena, which is my R660, is because I had to give up my R9T. But back to my GS500, one of my best friends, he currently has it. He completely redid her and made her look like a Walking Dead bike. So it looks really cool.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah, badass.
At some point. But yeah, so that was my first bike.
So how many bikes do you have now?
I think I have like 6 or 7.
You don't even know how many you have.
No,
That's
because
so
my
fucking crazy.
my bikes are everywhere. So I
Yeah.
have like a Honda Grom, which is I teach people how to ride on that. I have a Supermoto. I have my main bike, which is my RS660. It's a 2021 RS660. That's like a tongue twister.
Say that 5 times.
I know,
fast.
say that 5 times fast. I also have a CBR 600RR as a track bike. I also, what am I missing? Track bike.
What, you just came in?
I have a no, that was my R660.
Oh, I thought that was I thought that was I can't even remember what it's called. What did I think that? Anyways, I thought it was a different bike. I thought it was. What's that other one? It starts with a B.
A B. Buell? Like
No, not Buell.
Oh, okay. I was saying I can't think
not
of.
Buell.
I don't know many bikes. Oh, BMW.
No, it's terrible. No, it'll come to me.
Okay, it'll come
But
to you.
I thought that was something else.
Okay. Oh yeah. So I have a CBR F4i. So that was my second bike ever. When I was in college, I kind of had like this beater bike because there was in my college, or I went to UCLA. So out there in LA in general, there were a lot of motorcycle thefts.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, okay, well, if I get like a shitty bike, like something that's not like very pretty with, no like upgraded parts or anything, I have less of a chance for it to be stolen or, So, and it worked.
That's hilarious.
Nobody ever touched my bike, but there was at least one motorcycle being stolen every single week. And so I was part of this thing called the Bruin Motorcycle Association, and I was trying to like work with the cops out there to see if we could do anything about it. But it was really tough because people didn't like favor motorcycles out there. So in order to get all that passed, it was just like I had to jump through hoops and stuff. So anyway, so my CBR 600RR, that was like a Frankenstein bike. I didn't even have matching fairings. Like the front fairing was primer gray, the back was orange. And so like everyone always made fun of me because they were like, what kind of bike is that? Like they would call me the Beauty and the Beast. And
That's
so I would laugh
hilarious.
about it and I would just be like, yeah, she is a beauty and I'm the beast who rides it, So anyway, there's
Plot twist. Yeah.
I know, plot twist. But yeah, that was my second bike.
I feel that more people accept street bikes more compared to like, Harleys or some of the adventure bikes. Like Harley, people have a preconceived notion. They're like, you're a fucking gangster or you're whatever. Like you're a Sons of Anarchy. You know what I mean? And I feel like the street bikes, it's just something like, it's like, for example, like somebody pulls up in a Ferrari or something exotic. No matter if you like bikes or don't like bikes, people go, that's fucking beautiful. That's awesome. But if you show up in a Harley, obviously your pipes are loud and people are like, they're giving you evil eye and all that bullshit.
Right.
Do you agree with that statement or?
Not really, actually. So I understand where you're coming from and I get it because I'm
Yeah.
I'm predominantly a street bike rider, but it really depends on where you are and like because actually
Do you mean like neighborhoods or
I
elaborate on
guess
that?
like like location or something because I actually feel like there are more Harley riders and there are more cruiser type riders. Even like at the Bike Shed Moto,
Well, the bike shed's actually mixed up. I
It's
didn't see a lot
mixed.
of Triumphs.
Right.
And a lot of.
It's a lot of adventure bikes and from what I've
adventure
seen.
bikes.
So mostly I feel kind of like the minority, like as when I'm on a street bike, because I feel like.
But that's different. That's different because you're talking about a. You see, that's interesting. That's a great point. Okay, let me clarify on my statement.
Okay.
What I'm saying is outside of the motorcycle community, because you're right. In the motorcycle community, it's usually more Harleys
Right.
or adventure bikes. So when you go to the Neptune's Net, the Rock
Yeah.
Store, all those places, you see that. But I'm talking about like when you go to, we'll just call it civilians, like regular around town. You go to the store, you go to your bar, you go to your club, whatever the case is, where you go with your bike. I feel that the general public, the people that don't ride,
They think sport bikes are cooler.
they think sports
quote,
bike,
unquote. Right.
and they
right.
kind of accept you.
Yeah.
Like if I get my bike and I just go to Santa Monica by myself, just on the Harley, if I pull in, I get a lot of like, this fucking guy, look at this bike and it's so loud.
I feel like motorcycles in general.
You think in general?
Because I
I've
definitely
never
get
had
that.
street bikes, to be honest.
Really?
It's always been adventures and baggers and Dynas. It's mostly, as a matter of fact, I've had like 30-something bikes. They were all Harleys,
Yeah.
except for now that I have the GS and a Livewire.
I want a GS so badly. That's like one of my favorite adventure bikes.
It's the best.
It's the best, yeah. I can agree with that.
Look, 20-something years riding, always had Harleys. 2 years ago, a couple of friends of ours, we all rented BMWs. They're from Eagle Riders, and we went to Joshua Tree. It rained that weekend. We went to no man's land. We went on hills. We went on dirt. We went like by the time we were done, and we were like at that crew right there was Dyna Bros.
Yeah.
That week we all traded in our bikes and got fucking GSAs.
Right.
Like it's and now I've had my Harley and the GSA, you know, both within 2 years. My GSA has 3 times the miles that my Harley has.
I plan to add one to my fleet. I mean, they're really big bikes, but I love riding them.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they do make like a smaller version at some point, because that would be really
low.
cool. Yeah, they have a low seat option. They're just, and I know I can lift it up.
But they have a low seat, low suspension option.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call it the Bulldog.
The boys. Oh yeah, that's funny. Actually, I could see that
Yeah,
like
within friends, we call it the
perfectly. But again, I'm not intimidated so much by the taller bikes or heavier bikes. But again, if I was like out adventuring and I was by myself, that would suck a little bit more. Like I know I can pick it up. Like there's like this technique, where you basically have to on your back, like
grab the handlebar,
and then like it's like leg day. You know what I mean? It's like almost like a deadlift, but not really. But yeah, so. I love the GSs, so that's cool that you have one.
There's zero intimidation. You're clearly a badass, and a GSA is going to be nothing. I was at a BMW event in by Lake Elsinore. Is that by Pachanga? I think it's Lake No,
Honestly,
it's not Lake Elsinore.
Geography is.
Anyway, I think it's Temecula.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, yeah, that's
around that
kind of
area.
around that area. Yes, it's by
Yeah,
Paris.
around that area, they had a BMW off-road adventure, and they were showing a movie, and I can't remember the movie, unfortunately. But it was a race where this company goes and finds states that have this beautiful scenery, and it's not even roads. Like 50% of it's off-road, and then the other 50% is on-road, and they create a road
Like a
that's
really
safe
cool
for
route.
people, a route, and then they publish it and they edit it. I think the top 2 contenders that won it once it was already routed out was women that were like 5'4" and 5'6" on GSs, or no, they were on GSAs, destroying it. Like, you know, but people get intimidated by the size. And what I tell people all the time, like when people see a street glide or when people see a bigger bike, I'm like, guys, a bigger bike, when you're riding, yes, it looks intimidating.
It's more stable.
But when you're riding, it's more stable.
Right.
You don't get pushed around when cars are passing you up, if cars are passing you up.
if it's windy.
Or if it's windy, it stays more in place and it gives you more confidence. So, you know, but a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people are just like, dude, that's a big bike. Like,
Right.
you know.
That's mainly the main concern whenever girls come up to me and they're like, oh, you know, how did you do it? How do you do it? Like, bikes are so heavy and they're, you know, they're really tall. And I always tell them, like, I purposely, so that's another one of my bikes that I forgot. I feel bad. But it's my R6 and I love her. Like, I've rode her for years and years. So I still have her. It's at a friend's house. It's an 06 R6 and he put like an '08 engine and '08 body work on it. So it's basically like an '08, but the framework's still '06. So yeah, I purposely raised that bike as tall as possible so that I can't touch the ground. And because it was my daily commuter, I would just get used to the height. And so that way, like years of riding that bike, it made me just like not feel intimidated when I rode any other bike.
Yeah.
So like the Africa Twin is really, really tall. Any 450 dirt bike or 250
Really tall,
even.
yeah.
Yeah,
Even
really
250,
tall.
yeah.
So I can't touch the ground on any of those bikes, but I'm just like, no, I'm totally cool. Like I'll, lean the bike over, use my leg as a kickstand, and just.
Well, that's the thing. You only need 1 foot at a time.
Exactly.
The only time it fucks you over is when you got to back it up, and that's when
Yeah.
you just manually back it up.
You get off, man. Yeah.
Yeah, like
But
I do that
also-
with my GS.
Right. Like on hills, it's kind of intimidating too, because say like you're on an uphill and it feels weird, you
Yeah.
know? But yeah, I just remember this one time because I rode a Multistrada and those are really big
Those
bikes.
are fucking cool bikes.
Yeah, I love that. I love a Multistrada.
It's so weird because I've always loved Ducatis, and I still haven't had one. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's hard. If I were to get a Ducati, I would probably do either the Multistrada or the Scrambler because I love how it's
the Scrambler, yeah.
It's currently the lightest scrambler in the market for, as far as I know. I don't know if there's anything new that came out recently, but when I was like working with the Ducati at the time, that's what I learned. But anyway, also I've ridden my fair share of scramblers. Like I rode the desert sled in the Philippines, and that thing surprised me, like pleasantly surprised me, because it got through all this terrain and dirt, and like, you know, it has like the taller suspension and things like that. So it's kind of like the dirt bike version of of the versus the regular scrambler. But yeah, it was super fun to ride. It was fast, but it was really tall.
Right.
So, but I love the fact that it's like a lighter scrambler. And eventually I want to add a Triumph scrambler, because I one of my followers on Instagram was like, hey, you know, I could really see you on a Triumph scrambler. And
You're like, fuck it, okay. That's
well,
a
I know
recent
I
bike.
looked at, so I do take like my, you know, people who comment on my stuff, like I take their input seriously, you know, like if someone recommends a bike, I'll look it up.
Obviously.
So I Googled it, and I was like, actually, that's a beautiful bike, and it's cool. And you know, I love, my favorite type of bike out there is like supermotos, or like versatile bikes, you know, one that can go on both on road and on trail, because trail riding is like my absolute favorite type of riding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just did the supermoto class.
Oh, SoCal
Fuck.
Supermoto?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I used to.
I
took
had
their
him on
classes.
the podcast like 2 years ago. He was like one of my top 15
Was
episodes.
it Brian,
something.
the
Brian,
owner?
of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
But taking his course was completely different. Like that's just some other
How
fucking
so?
riding. Well, you know, I went there because it was just like motorcycle related, and let's talk about motorcycles. And we talked about it, and we talked about.
He's like, hey, why don't you get on?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
not even like he said that, but it was just more of the business, and we got into his lifestyle. We got into how he almost lived in New York versus coming to California, and then you know he was kind of like not doing anything, and it just kind of happened, you know, and this is why he's doing it. And it was a very casual conversation, so I didn't think much of it. You know, I've taken many courses, but I've never taken a supermoto class. And I just took it, I think last weekend or the previous weekend. Fuck me, man. That shit is fun. It's a different riding.
Right. 'Cause you're from adventure bikes.
It's so serious, you know, like like the amount of crashes and injuries. It was real. It's happening.
It's kind of like almost like not really like motocross. That's just crazy, other crazy shit. But like, yeah, you kind of, there's a style where you have to sit on the tank and stick your leg out, and it's not
he's
something
like,
you're
put
used
your
to.
fucking balls
Yeah,
on the
on the
fucking
tank.
gas
That
tank.
sounds like
guys,
Brian.
like put it on
Yeah.
there, and no, and he said
And
it
then-
just like that, and then
yeah.
he's like, guys, okay, you're gonna learn how to ride this, and you know, for example, let's say you're just riding, the cops are trying to pull you over. And there's a golf
That's how you
course.
run, yeah.
Just fucking jump into the golf course, and you're gonna fucking
Yeah.
and then you're gonna see a jump. Take the fucking jump, and then you're
Right.
fucking, you know, and it's hilarious.
It's the perfect getaway bike.
It's the perfect getaway. I mean, any bike's a perfect getaway bike, but like that's the perfect getaway bike.
Right,
So I
right.
want to get a supermoto because of that. But I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
But how many countries have you rode a bike in, and what's your favorite one?
Oh my gosh, that's so hard to choose from, because I've ridden, let me see, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I've ridden in China, I've ridden in Peru, I've ridden in India, I've ridden in the Philippines. So just like thinking about it right now, my most memorable ones were like the Philippines and India. So
What part of India?
the Himalayan mountains. So
wow.
I was like the only girl. There were 12 of us, and
Yeah.
I was the only female in the group, so it was just really interesting. But I'm used to being around a lot of dudes, like with all my hobbies and everything.
In this community.
Yeah, in the community, it's always like male dominated. It's a male dominated industry. So we rode for hundreds of miles per day through the Great Himalayan Mountains for 12 days and camped out, like pretty like crazy camping and riding. So I basically have ridden every single.
What company was it?
It's called Colloquial Experience. So I can send you the link later. But they're amazing. They took care of everything. They have a van that follows just in case anything goes wrong. But basically, you're like just out there riding.
Yeah.
And we were on a bunch of Royal Enfield Himalayas. I think it's called a Himalayan Royal Enfield. And that bike, I really want one of those bikes, because those bikes are the ones that we rode literally every single terrain and every single weather condition you could possibly imagine. So there was rain, snow, hail,
Oh my God.
like blazing hot sun, just everything. And then we went
Like
through
4 seasons in a week.
exactly. Yeah, it was crazy, because I was like, how does this happen? But it makes sense because it was really hot in some parts. Then we rode through the highest motorable pass you could, in the world. I think it's now the second, but at the time it was the highest. Like, it had the world record of the highest motorable pass, where we're like 18,000 something feet above ground level. So
That's
you
crazy.
technically you needed oxygen.
That's higher than most people skydive. Yeah, 20,000, you need oxygen 100. At
Yeah.
19, 20, 100% oxygen.
Yeah. So they were recommending, hey, if you stay on top of the mountain for that, like an X amount of time, you do need oxygen, because we didn't have oxygen, but we stayed up there and I could feel that it was literally harder to breathe. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is crazy. So even like when we had to get off, because we're like, oh, let's take pictures and stuff like that. Sorry, my cat
all
loves
good.
it. She's very touchy. So when we got to the top, of course, we all want to take photos. So we had to get off our bikes, and we'd already been riding for hundreds of miles, right? So we're already tired. And then on top of that, the air is very thin. So we get off our bikes, and we're trying to push our bikes into formation so we could take this really cool group photo. But then we're all like heaving. Yeah,
Exhausted.
we're like, dude, I feel like I'm
You
like
can't even
90 years
breathe,
old.
yeah.
Yeah, you could barely breathe. Like, it's hard, but it was cool. Like, at the time, my adrenaline was like pumping. So I was like, no, we got this. Like, let's go. So,
We can do it.
Yo, you can do it.
And
Si
everybody's
se
looking at you. She's like, this
They're like,
chick's
"This
so much
crazy-ass
smaller
girl."
than
I
us.
know.
And our lungs are bigger and being more
Yeah.
collapsed and shit. What the fuck?
Yeah, so that was one of my most memorable ones, because we also rode over crazy like rivers. Like, that Himalayan little Royal Enfield bike went through everything, and I was like, what the hell? This bike is a tank.
Yeah.
We went through rocks and like just so many different things. So that was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, that sounds like a fucking
It was epic.
lifetime.
Yeah. For sure.
Epic. Like that's what it sounds like, epic.
But same with the Philippines, because that I kind of stumbled upon. So the whole story with how I even ended up in the Philippines was I actually hosted a luxury travel show and it was like aired on National Geographic, People Asia, and a few other networks that I can't remember right now. But I hosted the show, and my producer, it was just me and him who rode out there. And he happened to ride motorcycles too. And so he'd worked with previously worked with a lot of other hosts. But I was like, okay, you know what? Since we're in another country and all this stuff, what if I like pitch to him, what if we incorporate motorcycles in the show?
Yeah.
So of course he loved it, because he's a motorcycle enthusiast. And he's like, you know
And in
what?
the Philippines, what people don't realize, just for the listeners too, what people don't realize is that a lot of countries outside of America rely on scooters and motorcycles
Exactly.
as transport.
But smaller ones.
Right,
So
it's usually
most
scooters.
of them are like
No.
125
Like,
cc's.
we're riding like the mansion
Yeah.
fucking motorcycles. Yeah,
Although, you know what I found in the Philippines is that Ducati is huge in the Philippines. Like, it's if you're rich in the Philippines and you ride motorcycles, you have a Ducati. But
Yeah.
it's like way more expensive out there, because taxes
with your
are
karaoke machine.
taxes are crazy. Yeah, exactly. Stereotype.
Sorry.
Okay, I do love karaoke though.
I was gonna ask when I
It's the
came in. I was like,
Asian
"Where's the
thing.
karaoke machine?"
There's one over there. I literally with it,
I
and it has a disco light.
I didn't ask because you went upstairs. I was like, "There it is."
Yeah, there you go. So it's true. And then there's a lot of stereotypes with Asians and Filipinos, like the big fork and spoon thing.
I
Like,
used to randomly, just quick fun fact. I used to
Yeah.
live in Daly City,
Uh-huh.
and Daly City is the capital of the Filipinos.
Filipinos, yeah.
The capital.
That's
like
funny.
every store you walk into has a whole pig like for sale.
Oh, lechon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lechon, yeah.
Have you had it?
Of course.
It's good. It's
Cubans
good.
make lechon.
Do they?
Oh yeah.
Well, actually,
Cubans are famous for lechon too.
a lot of like Hispanic culture is very overlaps with like different things like in South America. Like I realize it's very overlapping with Filipino culture, because I think it's just
Well, the Filipinos. If you look at the Filipinos, there's a lot of the Spanish conquistadores.
Yes, yes, yes.
were in the Philippines, And this is why you run into a lot of Filipinos with Spanish names.
That's
You'll be
my
like,
last
Juan
name is
Torres
Spanish,
and
yeah.
Gomez, and like, you're like, what the fuck,
Like
dude?
Flores, yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, time out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, so again, I have a Spanish last name too, so a lot of people think that I have his like Spanish in me, but probably do because of the history.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, back to the Philippines. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
No, that
can
was- that's
I
me.
digress a lot too, and I'm like super
That's
ADD.
my
so-
podcast.
Yeah.
I should call it like random.
Yeah, random
Random as
ADD.
fuck. Yeah, ADD.
Exactly. I that's why I like can fit in your podcast. So where was I? Oh yeah, so I convinced my producer to incorporate motorcycles in this show. It was called Island Hunter. So initially I was like traveling to different, the 5-star restaurants and hotels and stuff, like showcasing all these beautiful places in the Philippines. And I was like, you know what? Let's do motorcycles. I want to, but also really it was just like my excuse to ride. So I was like, I just want to ride somewhere
it sounded
and
like
in
that.
another country. But how cool would that be?
And they pay for it?
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm like, do it. If you get paid for what you love to do, you never work a day in your life. I totally butchered that saying, but you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So
It's
anyway,
legit.
and like I said, Ducati is like huge out there in the Philippines. So of course that's what we targeted when my producer was like, okay, well, we're gonna like try to ride motorcycles. I've never in the history of like me working with hosts, like none of them ever rode. You're the first girl host that rides, so I'm gonna take advantage of this kind of thing. So we go to Ducati.
He's like, you're a girl. I'm gonna take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
Hold on, that's
Motorcycle.
new. I know that's nothing new.
Yeah.
Welcome to a female's
That's-
life.
Welcome to the world.
Yeah, real life it sucks. I'm just kidding. It's savage, but
Jokes.
yeah, all yokes. So we got to Ducati, and it was like, the wife came out, and she was like, "Oh, the wife of the owner."
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And blah blah blah. And so my producer's like, "Okay, just let me do all the talking." Da da da. And he goes, okay, so, I host a show, we're filming right now, blah, blah, blah. How would you feel if we like incorporated Ducati and this, he threw his whole pitch.
Yeah.
She goes, oh yeah. And she was all for it. And then she goes, so who's the rider? And then he goes, oh yeah, her. And he like shows me, or he like kind of points
shows
to me.
me, yeah.
Yeah. And then she like looks at me like up and down, and then was like, oh, okay, we'll get back to you, And I was like, oh shit, And I realized I didn't think female writers already is like a rarity.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah, no, well, not anymore. Before,
Even
right? There are
now,
a lot. There are,
but not only that. I mean,
Mm.
get to the point. But I was gonna ask, like, a female, what's the word, role model or influencer in these countries. It's kind of still looked down upon in a sense, right, compared to America.
Not that it's looked down. It could be because of like females aren't supposed to,
Right.
they're not supposed to
You
be
can't
like,
ride a bike. You
right?
can't
Yeah,
do what a
exactly.
man does, yeah.
Exactly. So she was like kind of in shock, like, okay, we're not gonna put you on a like multi-thousand, like, okay. So again, in the Philippines, it's way more money for a Ducati. Like the taxes in itself is like,
It's double to triple.
yeah, like more than that, I think, from what I remembered. And then the taxes in itself was insane. I was like, what the hell, but yeah, it is like triple. So she was like, immediately, like that women's intuition, when a girl is like judging you or like, I just felt it. She just looked and she's like, oh, all of a sudden she just changed. She was like, oh, okay, well, we'll let you know.
It was cool.
Yeah, like, the idea seemed cool, but now like this girl who's like this small, and I was like dressed in heels, like, cause I was dressed up like a host, so I
Right.
had to be all like girly. So I don't blame her for like looking at me like that, but yeah, so I was just kind of like, okay, my thing is like, I love the element of surprise and stuff like that. So I'm like, I just stayed
Surprise,
quiet.
bitch.
I know. So I just like,
kidding.
was like, okay,
We're
cool. Yeah. And then my producer's like, oh, okay, well, here's the, media kit and all this stuff. So we leave. Sure enough, we didn't get a phone call from Ducati. They're like, so I guess they didn't want to work with us. But then, I met some other guys who started riding. We went to a motorcycle shop, and they were all like, oh, you know what? You could borrow one of our bikes, So I was like, okay. They had bikes for me to use. So I went out and I rode with them. And they had Ducatis too, because they were like guys with money. And so, after I rode with them, I rode with this club called Club 200. Or no, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun here. So I rode through the streets with them. And then it wasn't long before like word spread like wildfire through the Philippines, and people started talking about like, oh, there's some chick here who showed up from America and she's riding all over Manila, and like she's a great rider, you know? So that started happening. And then so Ducati called us back and was like, hey, you know, let's let you borrow one of our bikes. You know, you can borrow a Super Sport. But the owner was like, but I want you to ride with all these people. So like this whole group called Club 200 or whatever. And so they're called Club 200 because they don't go under 200 kilometers out there, apparently, which is like 100
and something.
Yeah, 150. I don't know, something like that.
115, 100 and something like that.
You think it's 150? Yeah. So, but still, like average, like that's, and in the Philippines, nonetheless, it's riding in the Philippines is crazy. I don't know how I came back alive because I already
I think riding anywhere in the world's pretty fucking crazy.
It's like there's no concept of a lane. There are jeepneys, took like different types of like animals, like guys with guns, you know, in the streets. Like there's just all this chaotic stuff. Like I'll tell you right now, like I saw a guy die in front of me. It was pretty morbid. Like I was riding and
not on a motorcycle, right?
no, he was on a bike. Yeah, he
Wow.
was on a bike. He got hit by a car, and then nobody did anything. Like
just
we all
went around
stopped.
them, like,
they
just-
went around him like it was a normal thing, and I was like, okay, he's like dead. You know, like you
Yeah.
could tell. And I was like, okay, well, we're just gonna keep on, you know, doing like. People just turn their heads. Like it's different in like a third world country and stuff like that. So, anyway, it's very chaotic, but you could see it's organized chaos. And I think that like because people are used to
Organized
the
chaos.
it is
Yeah.
it's so true because people ride everywhere, but you see how everyone kind of just flows, and it's like because they grew up in that whole environment, they're used
That's
to
their
the
normal.
chaos.
Yeah, they don't know anything else.
Yeah, and so anyway, I rode with Club 200 through it's called the Miralaki Twisties. And those guys were shocked because the whole time, you know, I ride the canyons here, I ride the track. And so I was keeping up with all the fast guys in the group. On this Ducati Super Sport. I was like, my adrenaline was going crazy because I was like, dude, this is crazy. I kind of have something to prove, but I'm also making sure that I'm checking my ego because at some point I was young and dumb and doing stupid, like riding stupidly, you know, I feel like everyone kind of goes through that phase, and then you get older and you realize, okay, all your friends are dying and like you've gone into close calls. Like I've been down a few times. Like I have a lot of crazy stories too when it comes to going down. But like, so for me, I already knew ahead of time, okay, check your ego at the door, but still have fun. You know, I love to have like spirited rides.
And show how these dudes had to ride.
Not show them because of course I don't know their experience. They could be very well all be better than me. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm just like, I'm going to have fun with them. So we all rode and they were shocked. Like when we like got up to the mountain and we got off to go eat, they were like, what the heck? Like, this is insane, you know? And I was like, no, you know, like I'm just having fun with you guys and this, like this and that. And so after that whole ride, that's when Ducati hit us up and was like, okay, we're going to work with you, you know? And I got invited to like these dinners and stuff, and they wrote like articles about me out in the Philippines. It was really cool because there was a Top Gear. It's like a big
Yeah, I've heard of
yeah.
Top Gear.
So Top Gear
They're super.
Philippines did an interview on me because of
Top Gear's originally a British company, I believe.
yeah. So
Yeah.
now it's like worldwide.
Wow.
So now because I kind of earned my street cred and like word spread like wildfire, Ducati was like, the owner personally came up to me and was like, you know what? I heard from my guys, like these are like my customers, my close friends, everything, that they rode with you personally and that you can ride. He's like, so you are now like you can ride any bike here like that you want to. So then after that, basically,
So quick, huh?
yeah. So it was really, well, it wasn't so quick. Like, I mean, it was like a few days.
But
we
you
were
earned
filming.
it.
I
Number one,
earned
you
it.
earned it because
Yeah.
you've been riding for so long.
Right.
Number two, you really gotten to that point of riding.
Right, and I
they
feel
just
like-
recognized it. That's all.
Right. And as a female in a male-dominated industry, it has been such a journey to earn real respect through even till nowadays. Like I still get comments like, oh my God, she's riding for attention. Oh my God, like da-da-da. And like even when I go to bike nights or like other bike like events, people like guys will come up to me, oh, so who'd you come here with? Like who's you know, back of the bike did you ride on? And I'm like, bro, okay, you want to ride on the back of my bike? But you know, I'll just kind of sometimes I'm such a troll. I'll like troll back with people. Like I have so many funny stories about guys like trying to, you know, I'll go to that after I finish my Philippine story. So anyway, back to now they let me ride the Ducatis. So not only that, it was at the time, it was when the V4 was coming out. So it was like 2000, what, 18 or 17 or
17.
something, 2017, yes. So in the Philippines, this was the first and only Ducati in the entire country. And
In
so
the continent, like the
yeah.
whole.
So they told me, they're like, you know what, we're closing down Clark International Raceway, right? They made a private track day just for me, and I got to ride the Ducati V4
Wow.
on the track. Like
Wow.
they closed the whole, so they got 3 different bikes for me. It was the Super Sport, the V4, and a Panigale 1299 or something like that. I can't remember the third one. I think it was, but it was like the top 3 bikes that Ducati
I
had.
haven't done this much on the podcast, but that's like a super high five.
Oh, thank you.
That's like a super high five.
But they're like, oh, by the way, this is the only Ducati in the country, so if you crash it, then that sucks. You know, just
fucked,
be
yeah.
careful. So I said, okay. So I got to ride, like on the show, I got to ride a racetrack on a Ducati V4 and a Super Sport and other bikes. So that was a really cool experience in the Philippines. And then from there, my producer had an emergency, like a family emergency. And he was like, oh my God, we have to stop filming. He's like, you have 2 choices. I could either pay for your hotel and stuff like that, and you could stay here until I get back, or I could fly you home and then I could fly you back when I'm back.
Hotel, please.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I love, like, but I'll be.
What's the flight? 14 hours?
Yeah, something like that. But I was like, okay, I love exploring. I have like this crazy adventure side, but I'm also by myself in a third world country, and it's kind of scary as like a female by herself. Like, but again, I was like, the things that scare you the most are usually the ones that most worth it.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay. I was like, I'll stay, you know, and I'll make friends and stuff. So anyway, I ended up staying, and that whole thing turned into the craziest adventure because I'd already made friends like in the motorcycle industry out there. Everyone just kept wanting to ride with me. I always had a bike out there, and I made friends with the senator, and the senator was like, you know, madly like, well, he liked me a lot. He was like, I like riding with you, and it was just crazy out there because you learn about like the different crazy political system and stuff like that, whether or not it's corrupt, but who knows what's going on out there, right?
Oh, we all know it's corrupt as fuck.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, I don't want to say that, but when I was out there, I learned a lot of the secrets, and I learned a lot of the crazy stuff. I got really close with a lot of the higher ups out there, and made friends with them. And so there was this one time where these group of guys were like, hey, we're going to ride through the crazy rainforest and stuff. You have a bike. We'll give you gear, everything. You want to come with us? So I was like, hell yes, let's go. So they gave me a bike, and like a dirt bike. It was, oh my gosh, it was like a really cool one. It was like I can't remember right now, but like everyone who always sees it are like, are always telling me. Yeah. Oh my God. I always like, okay, so my brain works like 1,000 miles per hour. So sometimes
you could see it.
Yeah.
Whoever's watching the video, you could see
I'm like,
it.
on crack. Okay, but anyway, people
Did you say you're on crack?
No. People who see it are like, that's a badass bike. I have to look at my Instagram again. But anyway, they let me borrow this dirt bike that was a badass dirt bike, and
full dirt bike or like enduro?
It was like an enduro.
Okay.
And so we rode through the Philippine rainforest, right? So again, there were like a bunch of dudes. It was to the point where we rode, like we had to pay a guy, like we would cross a river, and in order to cross the river, we had to pay like a guy a few pesos, and he had like this really...
Is it pesos over there too?
Pesos, yeah.
Fucking Spanish.
Yeah, I swear. Well, a lot of our
conquerors.
words, you know, overlap, like cuchara, basura, you know, la puerta, like all that is like the same.
La puerta, basura? I didn't know
All of that. Tenedor, cuchara, like I think I said that. La mesa.
La mesa, tenedor, plato.
Yeah, so that's why like my Spanish is pretty okay. But I also studied it. Like I said, I studied languages in college, which is a whole nother subject. But yeah, so you had to pay this boatman like pesos. And it's like this dinky, sketchy little like raft that it looks like he just made it, you know, the day before.
Board.
It's like pieces of wood with like pieced together by bamboo and stuff. Like it was crazy. But basically you get on it and you put your dirt bike on it, and then he rows you across the river, and the river's like crazy.
One bike at a time?
No, like we fit like 2 or 3 bikes, and it's like this like little raft, and
It's like this table.
yeah, basically. So we were like very tight. Like the 3 bikes are together. They try to jam pack everything, and then we're just on there like hoping that we don't don't like sink and drown and die. And we're like, okay. And then once we
And you guys are wearing all your fucking gear, which makes
yeah,
it
so
heavier.
I didn't have like, yeah, so they gave me this jacket. It was too big for me. Obviously, like all the gear didn't fit me properly, but I was like so excited to ride. I was like, okay, let's just go. You know, like as long as the helmet fits, then that's good with me. So yeah, and in the Philippines, it's also very humid. So wearing like crazy full gear, like was actually more harmful than not, you know? And that's a whole nother subject that I could get into where, you know, a lot of people say, oh my God, wear full gear all the time. And I'm like, no, sometimes, and it depending on where you are, full gear will actually, you can put you in a heat stroke, and it's even 100%. More dangerous because half of riding is mental.
A random fact, I don't know about now, I still believe now, but Miami, if you have insurance, you don't have to wear a helmet.
Yeah.
If you don't have insurance, you have to wear a helmet.
Oh, that's weird. But there are actually a lot of states that don't require helmet, like Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
but you know, I think Arizona,
where it's very hot and humid.
Very hot.
Right.
So, but anyways,
I could see that.
So now you're on this.
So now we're on this raft,
boat, whatever.
Yeah. So
who knows? You're on a helmet.
I'm like, dude, this is like the coolest experience. I've never like loaded a bike onto a tiny little raft that I don't even know if it works. You know, paying this boatman like some pesos, but whatever. You know, YOLO or whatever.
I trust you, bro.
I
whatever,
trust you.
Bro. Like, whatever.
You know, and whatever. I know to swim at the very end of the day. Yeah. You know, I'll like swim
Fuck
to safety.
Fuck the bike. It's not even mine. Yeah.
No, I will respect people's bikes. I would try to save it, but yeah, at that point in my life for the bike, I'm gonna save my life.
There's nothing to save. It's like
it
falls in the water. It's done.
Yeah, exactly. So so we get across and then we just continue on our trek. So anyway, long story short, those were the two most memorable countries that I've ever ridden is India and the Philippines.
Those both are fucking amazing.
And
every bike you described is amazing because most people ride scooters.
Right.
Most people ride scooters or small little bikes, and like you're talking about. Everything you wrote out there was fucking badass.
Yeah.
Even there it was badass. Here it was badass, which is a big deal.
Yeah, so it's cool. If you're ever out there, make friends with the Ducati people because that's where it's at. Like I got to ride all the scramblers. I rode all the, you know, the nice V4s, the super sports, like all of the street bikes and stuff like that. And yeah, so Filipinos are just very accommodating people in general. They're very hospitable and very
I've noticed that
sweet.
About most countries you go to.
Well, Europe too, yeah.
Yeah, Europe, India.
Yeah.
You know, I was in India. I was into Mumbai. Everybody's fucking nice. Like you don't. Nobody's gonna rob you. Like, bitch, give me your money. Like what?
It's just I don't know. It's hard to. But yes, for the most people.
But again, that's why I asked earlier. Like being a female and traveling to these countries where you know it's still kind of like you're a female and you're. It's kind of difficult, no?
It is, yeah, because also just in general, like you don't know if people are being friends with you or being nice to you because they think you're pretty or like, you know, they have ulterior motives. But I kind of have that mindset where I don't want to think that way. Like I don't really like living in fear or anything like that, which also could get you in trouble because I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. But because of that personality trait that I have, I feel like all the pros have overcome the cons in that sense, you know what I mean? Because people are like, oh, well, you trust people too easily, then, you know, you're too nice to these people. What if something bad happens, you know, they kidnap you or something? But I've been so like lucky and blessed to have met the coolest people, and because I trust them and I'm so cool, like a lot of the guys like in the Philippines that I met who were with Ducati or like any other, you know, who had money out there and they worked at bike shops and stuff, they were the ones who like took me around the Philippines. Like I literally went to so many cool things like underground boxing, and then at night it turns into this crazy like strip club. Like it's like crazy. It's like no, but it's like there's a lot. Like it's like
that's so much body.
So
fight and then a strip club.
No, there was one that's like midget boxing. Like it was like there was a lot of crazy stuff out there, and I'm like, what are you guys taking me to? But whatever, I'm open minded. I'm down. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in there.
That's
like that.
Fucking wild.
Same in Thailand. Like Thailand is another crazy place where all this stuff happens. And I'm like,
I heard it. So
I'm
crazy.
sure you hear a lot of things. Yeah, and it's true.
I had just for the exaggerated part of like the red district, like I have a friend of mine and he's, I don't want to say a pervert, but he's like an exaggerated man, you know, like like you know, I like this,
I know lots of those.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of them. He went there because he was in the Marines, and
he probably went crazy out there.
I was like, hey, you went to Thailand? He's all, dude, not for me. I go, what? Like,
It's-
not for
It's
you?
a lot. Yeah, if
He's
it's a lot not for him, then it's crazy.
He's like, dude, it's hell. There's certain areas that you walk through and it's hell. And
Yeah.
I just a quick, I was like, well, what's fucking hell? He goes, dude, you see American dudes, 6'4", 6'5", 60 years
Little
old,
girls,
with
yeah.
little kids,
Yeah.
like 10-year-old. Like, it's hell.
Yeah.
You know,
There are some
obviously
dark parts,
there is
right?
some dark parts.
Right.
And then he said another story that I've never even repeated after that. And I will not repeat because it was just so dark. And I'm like, oh my God. So, but
Yeah.
then you have all this beauty and wildness and everything else.
I will say I did go to one of those places where like girl so it
Dun,
started
dun, dun,
okay,
dun.
what had happened was
What
I was playing I was playing pool and darts with some lady.
Playing pool and darts at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it was pool and then there was darts. Like there was a lot going
Yeah.
on that night. And then she goes, oh, do you want to go inside? Like there's a bar and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, she was so nice. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm down to go. So I go in and then like there's just a lot of girls. There's like stripper poles, literally like 20 stripper poles on a stage. And they're all dressed and stuff. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like crazy. But they're like teenage girls who looked all sad, like just on the pole. They weren't even barely even dancing. They were like swaying back and forth. And then you see a lot of guys, and honestly, a lot of these guys were like military dudes
Yeah.
that were traveling, and they have a laser pointer and they just point at the girls. And
Wow,
when
just
they
click.
point, yeah, they click at you, the girl has to come down and like entertain them and like just have fun with them and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, that's crazy, you know? And so I was kind of like tipsy, you know? So I was like, oh my God, I want to go up there like and just have fun, you know? So, and
You're
they
like,
were,
psych, bitch. You're
well,
like-
so the funny thing is, so I did like pole fitness because it's such a good workout. Like I
Yeah.
have
I've
aerial
known
silks
many.
and
I've known many people that do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
It's a fitness.
it's real. Like I first took like a pole fitness class like years ago when I was in college, and I was like, dude, this is actually really cool. Like no wonder, you know, like you can get really good upper body strength from this. So I bought a pole
Arms,
from my house.
shoulders,
Yeah.
back.
Back when I was in LA. I still have it. I'm gonna install it in my backyard right now. But
right now.
not right now. My backyard.
on, can we
is-
finish the
Hold on,
podcast,
yeah,
please?
stop. I need to install this stripper pole real
damn
quick. I'll show you some moves. But
What happened to the rest of the episode? She went and
she-
fucking installed the stripper
it
pole.
was the ADD, sorry. But yeah, so anyway, it's a fun time, and it's like a great way to make, you know, your friends and stuff like feel sexy and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm like a big advocate for embracing your femininity, but also having that tomboy side. But anyways, yeah, so
That's a great
because I
quality.
had like pole fitness experience, I was
You
like,
were like, this is my time
no,
to
I
shine.
was like, no,
this is
no,
what
no.
I prepared for.
Okay, it's only when I'm drunk when I'm like, oh, let's go do stuff. But I was like, I wanted to teach these girls because I'm like, this is so sad. You know, they're
Yeah.
just like literally just going like this, and their faces are like dead.
But-
They're like whatever. So I go up to the stage.
You're all doing
right?
everybody's makeup.
Yeah, no. I was
smile.
like, well, I met one of the girls because she was really nice. Like she was like all like, I see her and I go up to the stage and I'm like, hey, do you want to like learn some cool moves?
You're so fucking
Yeah,
innocent.
and
You're
so-
hilarious.
Yeah, so she was like, okay. So I literally start doing pole dance moves on the thing. And the girl, I was teaching her and she was she started smiling, which was like, that's my thing. I just want everybody around me to have fun.
Yeah.
Right. So I felt the energy in the room, like with the girls that they were like kind of like blah. So I went up there legit and I was like, okay, let's go. Let's like dance and do stuff. And so I was showing her stuff and she was actually really cool. Like she started laughing and doing all the moves with
They
me.
were enjoying it.
Yeah, the other girls started kind of laughing and I see them kind of smiling and I'm like, okay, now it's like turning into something. But then I see like laser pointers on me, right? Because I'm like,
What the
okay,
fuck?
hold on. I was like, no. I was like, you know, obviously I'm just like someone who came from the crowd, but they don't, you know,
Yeah.
guys there who are drunk don't know any difference. Like
Right.
I could have just been out there in the crowd. Anyway, long story short.
You could have been in the crowd. They would have put lasers
I
on you.
made friends with the girls. I took her. I was like, hey, come downstairs. I was like, I'll buy you a drink, you know? And because you know, she was just like, oh, okay. She looked really young too. So we go down and I ended up buying her a drink. And I was like, I kind of just took her away from that scene and I was like, so what's your name? This and that. And we kind of got to know each other. And she was like the sweetest girl. I just remember she was like kind of very attachy actually, because I don't think she's ever met like a girl who was like, hey, come and hang out. And
I'll buy you a drink, and
I
I'm
was like,
not
I'll buy
trying
you a
to
drink.
fuck you.
Yeah,
and-
I'm just actually trying to talk to you and like learn about your life. You know, I was like, how old are you? And she's like, oh, I'm like 17. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, but out there again, you know, it's not like looked down upon to do that kind of work. Like in fact, like it's like work.
It's the norm.
It's norm.
It's
Yeah,
the
it's
norm.
normal. I mean, it's norm. But
Hi, Norm.
yeah. So
Who's
it
Norm?
was just so humbling and interesting to hear from her. And she was just telling me about her life. And she, you know, I was like, oh, well, tomorrow I'm going to go get my nails done, you know. And she was like, oh, I've never ever done that. And I was like, oh, well, one of these days, I was like, you know, maybe I'll come back out and like we could go out and get our nails done or do something. And it was just like a really cool experience to meet her and stuff. So then, yeah, that was my one random night in Thailand.
That's pretty fucking random.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff, but that went on.
It's interesting that there's just people that don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know. I ran into somebody like that in Barstow
Yeah.
recently, and I was driving to Vegas. Front tire pops, and it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I'm like, fuck, man. Like, you know, I don't have a spare. Actually, I did have a spare, but I didn't have the key for the lug nut. Mm-hmm. So I call a taxi company, and when I get the taxi company, this girl answers, and she's like, "Hey, you know, it's kind of late." And I'm like, "Look, I'm not in Baker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in Baker or in Barstow. I'm like in the middle of like, no, there's
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
there. I'm fucked."
It's kind of scary,
You know,
right?
she's like, "Look, this is my aunt's company. I'm just answering the phone. There's no taxi drivers right now." And I was like, "Well, fuck. Is there any solution?" They're like, "I'll go pick you up." And this girl comes and picks me up, and it took her like 2 hours. The tow truck was going to pick up the Audi and, you know, tow the Audi, and that's it. And she picks me up, and she starts telling me her story. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm 24 years old. My mom died when she gave me birth, and my dad just died now. He was older from COVID."
Yeah.
And I go, "You ever been to LA?" And she's like, "No, I've never been to LA." And I'm like, "You're in Baker, you know?" Like, and anyways, the story she's
It's
talking
not so
about,
far.
it's not. It's like 2 hours tops, you know, from Baker or Barstow,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And anyways, you just run into these people that just have these lives
in
that
their
are so
bubbles,
enclosed
yeah,
and they're
exactly.
bubbles, and they don't know anything other than that. What do you do for fun? Well, there's one bar that everybody goes to, but I don't like going there because everybody goes to.
Right.
It's just fucking so weird, like, but that's the norm for those people.
Yeah, really, honestly, traveling, it really humbles you and opens up your mind to a lot of things. Like I always tell people, if you have the chance or the means to, you know, you learn so much more traveling than you'll ever learn in reading books and things like that. I used to.
And you're more appreciative.
Right, because you experience these real life situations, right? That a lot of school doesn't really teach you.
Yeah.
You know, like I've had a lot of my fair share of education and stuff like that, but I used to like be such a bookworm when I was little, and I used to read a lot of books, and I used to read about like far off places, but it's not even the same at all when you're actually in these places, you know, because times change too. So
Yeah.
you just don't know.
Yeah, and that book is a
What to expect.
representation of that time and that place in that time.
Right.
So everything changes as it goes. But what, like, did you have like a crazy uncle that got you into? Because you do so much badass shit. Like you've done the skydiving thing. Like you've done so much. Like, where does that spark? Where does that spark ignite? And did your family or your mother, your parents, did they ever try to stop you or prevent you, or they kind of been like, yeah, you're good?
So what's funny is, okay, so I've just always had that like spirit of adventure. When I was little, I used to love climbing trees. I used to love like basically giving my mom a heart attack. Like so
Breaking
I was
bones,
so I was such a tomboy growing up. I have one older brother, and I wanted to be just like him. Like I looked up to him like crazy. So he used to skate. I wanted to skate. I bought all these skater shoes. I had like DVS's, Etnies, all these different things. And I even wanted to cut my hair like a bowl haircut like his, because I was like, oh my gosh, he's so cool.
A bowl haircut.
Yeah, it was not cute. Just yeah. So
It's so funny because with the stories that you're telling me, I'm like calculating your age. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh wow, she does the bowl thing.
the bowl haircut, I know. Yeah, so it's just crazy because my mom was a very big advocate. Like, no, I had a daughter for a reason. You can't know, like, I want you to be feminine. So because I was such a tomboy growing up, like she saw that I loved climbing things. I was very adventurous. I loved like skateboards or riding skateboards and things like that. She would always purposely take me on shopping trips and be like, and she's like, look, buy anything you want. I'm going to buy you these dresses. And she taught me the value of being like a lady. She's like, oh, you know, always like see yourself as a princess, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like you want to cross your legs. You want to be like this. You're very classy. And I really love and appreciate that about my mom, because I feel like that was so valuable as a female, you know, because I do really appreciate like my femininity again, but I still
That's
like,
what makes it all so exciting and
right.
attractive
I
and
always felt like, man,
respectful.
boys have like way more fun, because I always had a
100%.
curfew. My brother got to go out and play in the dirt and the mud, and my mom was like, no, you have to be clean, this and that. And I'm like, no, I want to
wanna be in
get
the mud.
dirty. I want to be
Wanna
in the mud too. Like, I traded my Barbie doll, so I had like all these Barbie dolls. My brother would play with GI Joes and Legos and stuff, and I was like, your toys are so much cooler, you know. And so I
They
would
got
like
more accessories.
yeah,
and-
I'm like, I like took my Barbies to my brother. I'm like, can we like let them like hang out? And my brother was like, no, that's
Ew.
stupid, you know? And I was like, so anyway, I ended up playing with his toys. But my mom always made it very clear to me, no, you're my daughter. You have to be a girl and this and that. So that's how I kind of have like my girly side, and I've always stuck with it, and I've always appreciated it, because I love my mom, and I like take everything she says like to heart. And I respect her and stuff like that. But yeah, so I started, like, because I had like the whole tomboy thing and I love the adventure side, I naturally got into motorcycles. I actually had to hide the fact that I rode motorcycles for like 2 years from them, and the way they found out was really crazy. So I learned how to ride a motorcycle, right?
Yeah.
I got my license, and then I actually got run over.
By the way, as you're doing this, just because I've heard stories like this and I've experienced this, you learn how to ride a motorcycle, but like you're doing this behind your parents' back, behind
Right.
the family back. You're sneaking away.
Yeah.
You're making up excuses. Like, it's a big fucking
It's a big
deal.
thing, right, right. But then I got run over by a car riding a motorcycle, like completely run over in 2011. It was like crazy, because my brother actually witnessed it, and he was like following me on a bicycle, because he's learned. I told him, I was like, oh my god, I'm starting to ride a motorcycle, I'm learning. And he was like, okay, he's like, I want to. My brother, he was always like kind of an instigator, so he's like, how fast can you take that thing? You know, so I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna like show off to my brother, because I looked up to him. I was like, I want to make him proud. So I was riding this little dirt bike at the time in a neighborhood. So my boyfriend is the one who taught me how to ride motorcycles 14 years
So
ago.
he's responsible.
Yeah, he's responsible for all the craziness that happened, you know. And so he taught me, and so I was using one of his bikes, and my brother was there, and I wanted to eventually teach my brother, and he was like on a bicycle, and he was like, I'll follow you. He's like, I just want to see you ride. So I was like, okay. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I need to go fast. Like, I need to show my brother. So I'm like going through this neighborhood, and it's like kind of like a 3-way stop. And so I was going, and it was the guy on the right side should have stopped. But so basically a 18-year-old kid ran a stop sign.
Yeah.
And when I was going, like, he went like ran the stop sign, and I was kind of a newbie rider. I just had been riding for like a year. And I target fixated on his car. And I did the whole newbie thing where I grabbed the front brake.
You panicked.
I washed out. Yeah, because I was like, oh my God, he like ran.
of
I didn't
course.
expect him running the red light, because later on I found out he was actually late to pick up his dad from the airport. So he was rushing. And so my brother was right behind me. And I looked at the bike, I grabbed the front brake, and I like washed out, and then he hits the bike, and I don't even barely remember it, but I just remember coming to, like, and I was like being a squid. I was wearing a helmet, a white wife beater tank top, jeans, and some Converse.
Yeah.
So
You're showing off to your
because I'm
brother.
like, well, it's just my brother. I'm just gonna ride down the street. I didn't think anything was gonna happen, but the whole thing is like most accidents happen within like a mile radius of where you live and things like that.
Yep.
It's very true,
It's
because
an
you
insurance statement, yeah.
right. Well, it's the frequency of how much you're actually
Yeah,
there.
it's
That's
it's
why.
science.
Right.
Science.
Yeah. So anyway, I get hit by this car. I basically am completely underneath a car. This car. It was a Toyota
Oh my
Tercel.
God, your poor brother.
Yes. So my brother later on told me he witnessed the whole thing. He thought I died. He was like, oh my God, she's gone. Because he saw me 1 minute and then the car run me over. And he said that he saw the car like bounce up and down. So he's like, oh my God, she's completely under. She's dead, I don't know what happened, like Archangel Michael or but my angels like looked after me, but the only reason why I lived was I didn't get pinned by any of the tires. I landed like right in the middle of between the wheels, but I was completely under, so I was pinned. And I wrote a whole blog on this on like my website and stuff, but of my whole entire experience getting run over. And I just remember I was wearing an Arai helmet, and that's the only thing that saved my life because it acted as a spacer between the, you know, the bottom of the car and the asphalt. And I just remember being stuck, and I was like, I came to, and I was like, what the hell is going on? You know, and I was like looking around, and I couldn't move because I was like pinned down. And then I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
The first thing that came to my mind was, oh wow, this is like what underneath a car looks like. You know, there's a lot of metal. There's like
oil
a pipe.
change.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, what's going on here? You know, like his tires are kind of dirty. But yeah, I thought that, and all of a sudden, like it kind of went by really slow, but also very fast. Because
so wild.
He is wild, yeah. So I heard him like changing gears. So I hear it, and I'm like, okay, it's either he's gonna pull forward or he's gonna go backwards. So now if you run someone over, the right thing to do is stop, don't move,
Yeah.
because the person underneath could be panicking, moving, and then you could rerun something over. So
Right.
if I like extend my arm, like trying to get out, and he backs up, like now he ran me over.
Yeah.
So don't ever, if you ever run over somebody, people,
Yeah,
just
don't.
stop the car, get out, and then look under to assess the situation. But
This
no.
is what this episode's about.
Right. This is how to save your life
Don't
when you get run
move
over.
the fucking car.
Yeah. So I hear him switching the gears, and I'm like, oh shit. Okay. So I'm like, whatever I just did, don't move. And I can't feel my body because my adrenaline is going off the charts at this point. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what got ran over. I was like, whatever.
Yeah, you don't know how you crashed.
I
You
don't
what's
even
going
know
on
what
the
happened.
bike.
Yeah.
Your brothers, they're
yes.
there.
I didn't
you
even
don't know if
think
he's
of my
there
brother, to be
Right,
honest.
but-
Like, I just like, I was like,
But
what am I?
subconsciously, you have so many
So
things
much
running.
things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, whatever happens, don't move. Because if he already ran something over, like if my legs already run over, then
You don't even know if your legs are attached to you at this point. Like, you don't know what the fuck's going on.
No idea, because I can't see. And so I hear him switching gears. And so I'm like, okay, just don't move. Like that's all I know. My first instinct was don't move, let him do what he needs to do. So he starts backing off of me. And because he was backing off of me and my helmet was pinned, it was like it was moving my helmet
Oh my
like
God.
sideways. So it was almost gonna, if I didn't move my body with it, it would have broken my neck because it was like moving my head like this. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, so I had to purposely give myself road rash on my arms. Like you could, it happened in 2011, but you see this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, so I had to go like this, and I have a little bit of road rash here because I had to like move my body to like keep it aligned with my neck while he was backing up off me. And then the moment he backed off, I felt all the weight come off because he like came off of me. So you shouldn't move too because you don't know what's broken. But
Yeah.
me, I'm like, I'm good. So I jump up and I'm like freaking out. And now at this point, there's like a lot of people outside, like looking and like calling 911. And I see people panicking. And I look at myself, I'm like feeling myself. And I'm like, okay, I can't feel anything, but I'm like bloody everywhere. I'm like bleeding on my arms, my legs, my jeans are all torn up. And then, so I run up to the first person I see and I'm like, oh my God, is my face messed up? Because that was the first thing that I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, is my head okay? And they're like, you're fine, but you just got run over by a car. We're calling 911. And so I'm like panicking. Anyway, the ambulance comes. They come and get me. I like go into shock and all this stuff. So then they give me morphine, which is by the way, like the best stuff ever. It is the best stuff ever. Like you literally all your pains and sorrows and everything
I
goes
know a
away.
guy, I know a guy.
I know
No,
a
I'm
guy. We'll talk after. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I just remember I was in the ambulance and they gave me all this morphine and like the ambulance guys were like hot. They were like young and hot. So I was like looking at them like, oh, I was like, do you mind giving me like a little bit more? And they're like, legally we're only supposed to give you like 0.5 milliliters or something like that. I can't remember. But then they're like, you know what? You just got ran over by a car. We'll give you a little
We'll
bit
set you
more.
up.
Yeah, we'll hook you up. And I was like, thanks. So it
You're
was
like,
like
can
really,
you do it with your shirt off?
yeah. I know. I'm like, please make this easier. I just got run over by a car.
It's just so much pain.
Yeah, so I'm hurting so much. It hurts so much. Please help.
Yeah.
So it was like, that was my whole experience. But, oh yeah, and then the doctor, oh my gosh, I'm going into tangent, but this is how my
it's
parents
good.
found out how I rode a motorcycle. So obviously, like I was in the hospital.
Great recall.
Yeah, so the doctor was like, came in and was like, you know what, you are one of the luckiest like patients that I've ever had who've been run over by a car, because usually it's much worse than this, but you're you're being discharged on the same day with just bruises and, you know, like road rash and scars. He's like, but it
That's
could have
so
been
much.
it could have been
That's
way
so much.
worse.
Of course.
And so I was like, okay. So then I was discharged that same day, but I had to go home, and I literally wore sweatpants because it hurt so much to wear like tight jeans.
Yeah, of
I wore
course.
sweatpants and maxi dresses all week to hide it from my parents, But I literally shot myself in the foot because that was during college when I was going to community college and I was transferring
I was like,
into.
what the fuck?
I was transferring. She's a ninja cat. So
Yeah.
I
That was very
had to
ninja.
write my personal statements.
Yeah.
And in my personal statements, they asked me, "Oh, what are some pivotal moments in your life that changed your outlooks and things like that?" So of course, I write about the time where I almost died.
Yeah.
I write this whole, both of my personal statements and prompts were about me getting run over and stuff like that. I forget what the other one was, but so long story short, my personal statements got chosen at my college to be
Published.
and presented because they were like, "Oh, this
This is
was
so
really well
crazy."
written." No, it wasn't that it was crazy, but they wanted to use it as an example for other students who need help writing their personal statements. So it was like submitted to the English department or whatever,
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I want to make my parents proud. And so I told my parents, I was like, "Oh my God, Mom, like Dad, my essays got chosen to be like an example in the, in English department as like personal
Yeah.
statements and stuff like that for people going to
You'd be
admission
so
to-"
proud.
Yeah, so of course my mom and dad are like, "Oh, give us a copy of it and we're going to show it to our coworkers." I didn't even think about the fact that I wrote about me getting run over by a car
About
on my
riding a motorcycle
Yes. So
behind
then-
their back for 2
Exactly,
years.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I got fucking hit.
Yeah, so I without thinking, I'm like, oh, I was so excited. I gave them my personal statements and I moved on with my life. Now, when I was out with my friends one time, I was like, we were having fun and we were driving. I get a phone call from my mom and she was like, she sounded so pissed off. She's like, "I need you to come home right now." And I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "Just come home right now. I need you to be home." I could tell. I know my mom. When I'm in trouble, that's her tone, and she's like shaking. So I'm like, "Oh shit." And so I start immediately thinking, what have I done? What did I do this week? Did I do something bad?
Where did I go?
I was
Where-
always a relatively good, student and daughter and stuff, but I have a rebellious side. So
Right.
I was like, wait, did I do
But
something and
the-
get caught?
Right. The other thing is that you do things, but
Yeah.
you usually clean your tracks.
Kind of, yeah.
So now you're like, where did I
basically.
slip?
Yeah, I was like, what have I? So all this stuff was going through my head, and I'm like, I couldn't think of anything. I literally couldn't think of anything. So I was like, okay, now it's even scarier because I don't know what the hell she's gonna bring up. So I come home, and sure enough, it's like her and my dad. Like it's like a whole intervention.
Right.
And then they have these papers, like it was like my personal statement, but I didn't know what the papers were. And they're like, "So, do you ride a motorcycle?" And I was like, "What? No." I was like, who would say that? What? That's like ridiculous. And they were like, "It says it in your personal statement." And I was like, right when they said that, I was like, I am the stupidest person on earth. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay. I was like, yes, I have my license. I got my license. But I was like, look, hear me out. I was like, I'm very, very safe with the exception of me getting hit by this car. I was like, Mom, at first I just tried to say, Mom, Dad, like, look, I just wrote that to get into college. Like I needed a crazy story. They didn't believe me because I'm such a
Obviously.
terrible liar. I was like, look, I just made that up. They're like, you can't make that up. You're not making that up. And I'm like, okay, fine. I do have my license, but I'm going to be very safe. I'm going to take all these courses and this and that. And of course they were pissed off. Like they were
Obviously.
very like, you're our only daughter. You shouldn't be on a motorcycle. That's so dangerous. But through the years, which is really funny, I never thought my parents were going to accept that. But
Yeah.
while I love and respect my parents, I also am very like a firm believer in like just being who you are and sticking to that and like
Absolutely.
being authentic and just doing what you love, all the while being respectful towards others around you. So in order to do that, to convince my parents to be accepting of the whole motorcycle thing as an Asian female, in like a very strict household, I grew up again in a very Christian family household. So I would always update them with, okay, look, I'm taking these classes. I'm going to take this safety class. Like I took the MSF course. I went to like SoCal Supermoto. I did like BMW's superbike school. I did all these different things through the years, and I would show my mom, like, look, I'm wearing gear, I'm doing this.
That's the most important part.
Yeah, and I would go to track days because I'm like, look, it's important, but just because. And I was like, Mom, Dad, like everything can be dangerous. I could walk outside of our house right now, get hit by a car. I could be riding a bicycle and get hit by a car. There's like, you can't live in fear, and like they didn't understand it in the beginning until it took some time, and then finally they started seeing me doing it professionally. Now I ride professionally, right? Like I do stunts in Hollywood and things like that. And so now my parents are like more than proud and happy to share the videos that I've appeared in. Like I've been in movies, I've been in TV shows and music videos, like riding professionally. And so they're always like sharing. They're like, can you send me that video that you were in? And they're always, they still kind of get scared when they watch me skydive because I have so many videos of me jumping out of planes, and they're like, no, like I still like.
What's crazier?
What? Oh, man.
Between the bikes and the skydiving?
It's not comparable because they are two totally different things. You're flying low, the other one you're flying high, right? So there are more.
I love that right there is boom. That describes everything. Yeah.
There's more deaths with motorcycles for sure. Actually, skydiving, there's a big misconception.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
It's actually one of
It's
the
not
most
funny. It's not.
It's not funny.
Yeah, like,
I get what you're
that,
saying.
yeah.
It's one of the safest air sports. Like base jumping and proximity flying, all that is way more dangerous. But skydiving, like it's very rare for like a freak accident to happen, because you do have a reserve chute, and you're more likely. They say you're more likely to die on the car ride to go skydiving than you are actually skydiving.
Wow, I never heard that. But
yeah,
that
it's
sounds
true.
about right
It's
too.
very true. Think about all the car accidents.
The car
that happen.
ride to, but
to
I know,
go
but
skydiving.
Yeah, but that's a pretty. Because if you say it's more dangerous, driving a car. In general, that's like okay, of course, there's like millions and millions of cars, but you're more likely to have an accident driving a car to go skydiving. That's fucking crazy.
Right? It puts things into perspective. Yeah, let's go. I will go any day. It's been like over a year since I've gone.
I haven't gone in like 10 plus years.
Yeah,
it's fucking terrible.
But okay, so it is different to go tandem versus like the
of
way.
Of course, by yourself.
Right, because the way people compare.
But I did do the highest. I did 18?
Do.
Yeah, I did the 18 and actually went to like 19 and change in Monterey County.
I did yes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
another high five. I don't do high fives. I gotta start doing this shit.
Let's do the high fives. They're fun. It makes
Monterey
it interactive.
Does the highest.
They do. So that was the very first time I ever went skydiving.
Beautiful.
It's amazing. All the greenery,
beautiful.
The air is so crisp and clear. I love riding up there too.
I love Monterey. I used to live in Monterey.
Oh, that you're lucky.
I used to live.
Laguna Seca is so close.
Actually, when you were talking about your track day, one of the like the whole thing in the Philippines where you had the track to yourself. The only time I had an experience like that is I was working for Harley Davidson in Monterey County.
Nice.
And Eric Buell introduced the 1125, and they set up a track day just for us to just fucking ride this thing, and it was cool. But
was it Laguna Seca?
In Laguna Seca.
Oh, that's such like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like all the superheroes of motorcycle riding has ridden that, like the I can't think of the word right now.
Yeah,
anyway, like
Rock.
Rossi, all Rossi and all the MotoGP riders.
Yeah.
It's like a very
it's
prevalent track. Like I love that track. I've ridden it once.
I seen the Concurso Italiano on there too.
Oh, that's
the
cool.
Italian fucking cars. I seen people
Spanish, like 20. The
Concurso Italiano.
He can roll his double R's, ladies.
Yeah, well, I got Valderrama as a last name, which is a very big Filipino name.
Oh yeah. Mine's Serra, so I have a double R. Yeah.
Oh, I got.
Yeah.
Fuck it, one more.
No, one more. We got double R's in our last names.
I know. Yeah.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, so skydiving.
Yeah.
So my very first time skydiving was tandem as well, and I went in Monterey. So it was 18,000 feet. I actually passed out.
Did you?
So I have so many crazy. Like I have a lot of motorcycle crazy stories. I have a lot of crazy skydiving stories. The very first time I ever skydived I passed out because it was 18,000 feet. So I made the mistake of when we jumped out, I looked down and I opened my mouth and I started screaming. So all the air was rushing into my lungs like so fast. And so because all the air was they tell you, oh, don't look down and open your mouth. Like look up and look at the horizon. But I was like so excited. And I was like, oh my God, look at the ground. It's so far away, And so I start screaming and I just feel the air going down into my lungs and I just feel very like, I started feeling like lightheaded and I just passed out. And I had a videographer at the time. So you just see him, like, I'm like this, I'm like, woo. And I'm like looking down.
What year?
This, oh my God, this was in, before maybe, like probably around 2010, 2011. So it was maybe even before I started riding a motorcycle.
Yeah.
So I was like this, and then you just see me like passed out like this. And then the videographer goes closer to me and he's like, hey, wake up. So he like lifts up my chin. I like come back and I'm like, oh, and I just start screaming again because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going skydiving. And so then, yeah, so that happened. That was my very first time. And then the reason why I later on decided to get my license is at the time I had the opportunity. So basically it was like another reality show, right? So they wanted to do a reality show with putting 12 different influencers, like social media influencers, into a house, and we're all from different backgrounds. Like there were fitness models, there was like one of the guys from the Faze clan, like the gamer clan.
Yeah.
There was like different male and female fitness models. There was like actors. There were dudes from The Bachelor that were on there. Just everybody from
a fucking mess.
Yeah, there was me who came from motorcycles. It was 12 influencers basically into one house, and they're like, we're gonna document you guys going through this and getting your licenses, like your skydiving licenses. So obviously not all of us made it. Some people really freaked out. Like one of the girls, she was like a fitness influencer. When it was time for us to jump out of the plane for the first time by ourselves, she started crying and she made this whole debacle, like, I don't want to go, like I can't do it, you know. And so that was like, you know, made for good TV or whatever. But anyway, I think only like 5 of us out of the 12 ended up actually getting our licenses. I was one of them.
I'm gonna ask you a question on the Monterey thing.
Yeah.
What did the plane say before you jump out?
I do not know.
You don't know?
It was in 2000. No, there was no way. Yeah, it was like in 2010. Like, and that's not what I was paying attention to.
Yeah.
What does it say? Something?
Well, they usually put in the video too.
Well, yeah.
It says don't jump.
Oh, it says don't jump?
On the plane when you're about to jump,
funny.
it says don't jump.
I mean, I still have the DVD, so I could look back at it.
What the fuck's a DVD?
What? Well, I mean, even Skydive Paris still gives you, they give you a USB. Fine. I have a DVD. But it was like in 2010.
Yeah, records and shit. Yeah.
That was that.
I'm gonna put a pause, like not to interrupt your skydiving or other stories like that, but you got into motorcycles and within 2 years you had an accident. You went skydiving and on your first jump you passed out. Like you've dealt with all the fucking worst case scenarios.
All right.
What made you skydive again? What made you jump back on the bike? What was the feeling after that? Because usually people get in an accident and it's like they're done. Like,
yeah, no, you're right. And that's a really good question. A lot of people ask me about that when after I tell them that I got run over by a car. But I actually jumped on a bike a week later after my getting run over, because I just was obsessed with it. I loved it so much that I'm not going to let...
Did you jump on a bike a week later because what you're saying, you're obsessed with it? Or did you also have a thought like, I better jump on a bike because otherwise I might be traumatized?
No, because I just obsessed. I didn't even think about me being traumatized. Like it was weird. Like I was just like, oh my God, I need to get better so that I could jump back on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, I've always like hated limitations. And that's the thing too, like growing up in this strict household, and so my parents were very strict with me specifically because I was the youngest and only daughter. So I always had a curfew and all that stuff.
Everything.
But I always kind of naturally rebelled from it because I'm like, I don't like limits. Like I don't like that. Why limit yourself to something when there's so much to explore? There's so much to learn.
But not liking limits.
Yeah.
Like where does that come from? Because I feel, just to give you a small example, I feel like I came from such a controlled environment growing up, and don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, and I did do certain things.
Yeah.
You know, I did break out of it, but there's so many things that I didn't do till later.
Right.
And I'm like, how did you break that? Because you had all the odds against you to make sure you'd be a little princess and wearing a pink dress and you wouldn't have all these fucking helmets and 6 crazy vehicles and like where is that?
Yeah, that's hard. I feel like maybe it's like in people's personalities, like deeply rooted, and you kind of just have to unlock it, kind of thing. But also for me, I just have that attitude where I just never want to give up. Right? If I go through, to me, getting run over by a car was just like an obstacle. So I'm like, okay, if there's like some obstacle or challenge, like how can I get through that? How can I get past that? I'm not going to let that stop me from what I want to do.
The reason I'm so focused on this is because people brain fuck themselves.
Yes.
And somebody
They're in
gets
mental jails constantly.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, people get hit, walking, my grandfather had a saying for what you were saying earlier. The only requirement to die is to be alive. That's the only requirement.
Exactly, right.
You hear about the, Olympic athlete, runner, woman that's never smoked, dies from lung cancer.
Yeah.
You hear about a woman breastfeeding her baby and there's gang violence and a bullet hits the parent, that's the only requirement. But my question is with all these challenges, what would be the takeaway of advising people, like, get off your fucking ass, or, because I've taken Landmark. Are you familiar with Landmark? Landmark teaches this kind of thing, and that's why I find it so fascinating. Landmark teaches that, like, you are not your past.
Right.
Your past
don't let
is
your past define you.
Don't let your past define you. Don't let that story. They describe it more as a story. Like, don't let that the story you're telling yourself of the past, of who you're judging yourself to be. You're not that person.
It doesn't even matter, right?
You're you.
Right.
Yeah, you're you. But so many people are mindly fucked that they can't get past that. But you've done this over and over and over. And it's such an oxymoron, because it's like you were raised the girl, the youngest, strict Christian family, Asian. You had, like there was no chance anybody would bet you were going to be the person you are today.
Right.
Where the fuck did this come from?
Yeah.
What's the secret? Don't fuck with us. Tell us.
No, but you're right, though, because again,
It's wild. It's beautiful.
I am that type of person to live in the moment, and a lot of people don't get that,
Being
right? Like,
present. Yeah,
yes.
being present.
So, and that's why I started a business about this a little while ago, and like I was a very big advocate about living in the present moment completely, because the majority of people, I feel like, they do live in the past. Like, they let their past define them. If something happens, they're traumatized. There's PTSD. There's all sorts of things. And while I can't, like, dismiss that, because these are still people's real feelings and their feelings are valid, right?
Right.
But I feel like you can still train yourself to be mentally stronger than that and be like, okay, well, the past nor the future does not exist. It doesn't even matter. The past is the past. The future hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah.
What literally only matters is now, like right now, and how I deal with things. So I could, if I wanted to just turn, like I always like kind of do this thing where I'm like, I'm going to just turn things off, right? Because if I think too much, oh my God, I could just like go crazy.
How do you do that?
I don't know. I kind of like think of it as a game, like not even as a game, but I'm like, okay, there's a switch in my head. I'm going to turn it off and like not think about it and just think
Describe that better. I think you describe that better. How do you shut it down?
Oh,
like, I'll give you an example. I started doing this to shut things down, but I think you're going to do a better job. I started thinking about like gray paint.
Oh, see, that makes sense.
But
for me, it's
and
not.
that's new. That's like in the last 3 months, I was like, fuck, I can't sleep. Like gray paint.
No, there's
gray
like,
paint.
wait, what was it? There was like this one show or something like that where they're like, oh, if, you're like this perverted guy. If you're like thinking about something, just think about like your grandma or like your grandma making a sandwich or something like that.
That's like to not come.
Yeah, I know exactly. Just think of it, like exactly. So there's like a lot of things like
What does that have to do with concentration?
I don't even know. Okay, but mentally, okay, my mind gets into the gutter sometimes, but I thought it would just be funny, but this conversation could completely take a 180 degrees.
I'm surprised we got this far. You've kept it fucking very tight.
I kept it very
You have
good.
heard my podcast because you've kept it.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, I could also get into a lot of different things, but it just really depends. It just really depends. But for me, again, like back to the switch is I don't know. Like I literally think of it as a switch. Like you can either live happily or you could live shitty. Like there's.
I like shittily.
I think I'm gonna start using it. You want to live shittily? Then go ahead and think negative thoughts. Yeah.
We should start a website.
Yeah,
shittily.com.
Like make T-shirts and stuff. I think that could sell. Actually, it's our million dollar maker. And
but how is the switch? How is it a switch?
Okay.
Like you like you physically like walk up to a switch in your mind.
No, I don't. I literally tell myself.
Is there like a safe word? Is there like
a safe word? Do you really want to get into that right now?
Blue helmets. I'm like, okay. Like,
I got it.
What is it? Tell me. Because that's gonna be the most valuable. Like you're a badass. People go on your social media. People see that. That's all cool. That's amazing. I respect that.
Yeah.
I want to say congratulations and continue doing that. And I want to know where you're gonna take that or where you predict. But that's afterwards. but the mental strength that you have to accomplish the things that you have done, it's so valuable that if there you are inspiring people throughout the world, like the story you were telling in the Philippines. How do we remind people to be present? How do we remind people to like just to get over? And it's not only being present, it's like, how did you get over the accident? How did you get over the blacking out? Like, that's enough shit for people to just fucking stop. That's enough for people to be like, you know what? I'm gonna get a man. I'm gonna have 10 kids, and I'm just gonna stay home.
Like, just settle down. I'm gonna like,
this is fucked up. This is not for me.
I'm gonna settle. But okay, it's really, I'm trying to really think of how I could even put it into words, but I feel like experience really matters, right? Because there's some people who could imagine it and be like, oh yeah, I could turn the switch off. But no, like, you just like there are opposites are very necessary in life, right? Like, you need dark to appreciate the light. Like, you need to go through some fucked up shit to really appreciate the good times. And I feel like when people go through these crazy things, like really negative experiences or like traumatizing things, at that point they have a choice, right? You can either choose to let it define the rest of your life and make your life miserable, or you can be like, no, I'm gonna come out of this stronger. And again, there are people who are naturally more negative, and there are people who are naturally more positive.
The way they were raised,
right?
And
it's the environment, it's nature versus nurture. There's a whole thing. But I also think that you have to try even harder to train yourself to be more positive, because when you
100%
being negative is actually like a fight or like it's a defense mechanism. Like, it's a fight or flight response, because we tend to think the worst scenarios because we want to protect ourselves. Like, oh my God, I'm going to think of the worst thing because I want to make sure that, okay, if this happens, then how will I get out of it or whatever. I'm just going to naturally think the worst things, right? And so...
Well, another thing to the fight or flight is that there's actually 3 feelings. It's fight, flight, or freeze. And
okay,
most
yeah,
people
I can see
freeze.
That. Freeze, yeah.
Like when you had your first accident, you froze.
You're like,
what?
What's going on?
You know,
yeah,
like it's not like, oh, it better. You know, you weren't self-defensive. People freeze. They get
I
stuck.
never heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
On the
yeah,
Right
that
Boundless
makes sense.
podcast brought to you by Robert Beltrán.
Yeah, we learned so much right here. Like, who needs college when you have this podcast?
That's right. God damn it.
Yeah. So, what were we talking about?
We were talking about that moment, present.
Oh yeah.
and like,
So again, I think like you just have to experience that, and again, you just maybe need to be in the right place or time, because maybe if that happened to me years later, I might not have been in such a more positive mind state, because back then I was like more naive and young, and I'm like, oh no, well, nothing can stop me, you know, and I kind of still am in that like whole mindset, and I think that's just me personally.
Why wouldn't you?
I'm
and you should be.
I'm very like I'm just naturally a very positive person, so whatever.
Let's bring this up.
Yeah.
And this is my profession where I interrupt people all the time. Let's talk about you growing up, like the positive, because it sounds like you, at the end of the day, it might be strict, but there was a lot of positive influence. There was a lot of, you could do anything. You could do, like, how would you describe roughly growing up?
I mean,
was
I had
a lot of positive stuff, good?
Well, I mean, maybe my parents had a lot to do with it, because my mom and my dad, they have like really cool humor. Like, they're funny, you know. Well, actually, they were very strict growing up, but it was only recently that I realized, like when I was older, that I'm like, wow, they actually have like humor. Because when I was younger, I always thought like, oh my God, they're like really strict. But my mom and dad were also very, very like sweet to me growing up. You know, my mom always like taught me to love everything and like just be very, you know, caring towards others and considerate. So I think they did a really great job, like raising me in that sense. They were very encouraging, but at the same time, you know, I went through a lot of separate things in like school. During school, like I was even bullied. I did all this stuff, but even through all that stuff, I don't know.
Did they know about your bullying? Or?
No, I never told them anything. Like there was like,
but
this
that's already a strong character. Like you, like you were really born with this.
Yeah, I think, and I don't think that you're just have to be born with it. I feel like anyone can just learn it, but it is like a challenge, because it is harder for us to think positive thoughts versus negative thoughts. Because like I said, there's like this thing called the negativity bias, where we tend to think it's easier to think negatively than it is to be positive.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy, and that's why you know, negativity feeds all over negativity and stuff like that. But yeah, I think naturally before, like, I'm always the type to, like, if my house is burning down, I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, we're good, guys. Let's go, like,
No.
you know, make the best out of the situation.
I just looked with the insurance cover.
Yeah.
The insurance policy's paid for. We're good. Yeah.
Right. But, and again, it really just boils down to where I always think about it like, okay, do I want to be happy or do I want to be sad? I'm the person who's in control of all of that. It's not anybody else. There are going to be things. And I think when I was younger, I felt that. But like I never was able to define that into words until growing up and experiencing things and realizing, okay, you know what? I've been through some really messed up, sad things like that. You know, people don't like to talk about their dark pasts or whatever. And I feel like a lot of that, the only way you can really appreciate life is when you go through really sad times. You have to, because you can't, again, like when you can't appreciate you can't appreciate light without experiencing dark, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah,
if
'cause
you're
if it
in
was all
light,
light-
you just be like, you take it for granted. You're like, okay,
It's just
cool. But then
regular.
when it's dark, you're like, wait, where's the light? Like the light was really cool. I could see things, you know? Same with sadness and happiness. Like, I feel like when you're just, you know, and life goes through its motions. It's like a big roller coaster of ups and downs. And that's why, like, I have a lot of friends who always come to me for advice and things like that. And, you know, everybody has a sob story, right? Everybody. There's no one who has like an exception. And a lot of people tend to like become victims of themselves and stuff like that. But so I always tell them like, hey, look, like, again, nothing is ever permanent. Everything is temporary. So whatever you're in right now, it's not going to be
always
forever.
works out.
Life always finds itself, you know, it always works itself out. So it really depends on your attitude with it. If you can actually prolong it, if you want to make it like a living hell forever, go ahead. You're more than welcome to. And actually, I really truly believe some people like that. Like they like to have all that drama and all that stuff. Like
I've said it before. I've said that I think there's people that like to suffer.
Yeah.
There's people that like to.
Masochists
They
and
only
yes.
respond to like, you know, disrespect and
Yeah,
negativity.
exactly.
Like, get the fuck out of here and get the
yeah.
fuck. And people like it.
To each their own, right?
Yeah.
Whatever floats their boat.
Or you'll be like, hey, just, you know, you can go straight, you know, it'd be fastest route. And people like taking the long route. It's like, dude, like.
Which I could understand, because sometimes if life is too perfect, again, I would personally get bored. I'm like, okay, throw some curveballs in there. It's fine. Like I can handle it.
You go straight and be there in 5 minutes, or you can take the 8 mile,
You could take the scenic
8-hour
route.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, that's the thing. Like I don't really have like a straight answer on how I personally can turn on the switch, but I really do think in my head, okay, turn it off, turn it on, like try it. And it's not perfect, you know. There'd be days where I'm like a little bit more low, there'd be days where I'm a little bit high.
But you've already accomplished and you've shown that, like, even like I don't know if there's more darkness or not, but just what you talked about, like I said, the motorcycle thing or the skydiving thing, that's enough for people to be, that's enough for like thousands of people to be traumatized and be like, dude, that's like, fuck skydiving.
Well, the first time,
like, there's
passing
people that
out,
don't even go skydiving.
Yeah.
The first time, that's, look, your sentence, the first time you passed out. Please continue.
No, the second time I feel like was worse, because I passed out by myself skydiving, which is the
second time I
part.
went skydiving was scarier than the first time.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. I really encourage you to try to do it by yourself.
I'll do it.
Because
you don't understand. I'll fucking do it.
The way they compare it is like, if you go tandem, it's like riding a roller coaster. You're
Right.
just there for the ride.
Well, not only
person
that,
who-
but you're out of the control.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. They're just there for the ride. The person is doing all of the controls. Like they're pulling the chute. They're the ones landing. They're the ones looking at the altimeter and gauging, like, oh, okay, it's time to pull, like making all the decisions.
Yeah.
Whereas when
I
you're
wanna
by
do it.
yourself, it's a completely night and day difference. You're jumping out. You have to constantly check your altimeter to make sure, okay, at this point, when, you know, up in the air, I have to pull my parachute.
What is it, still 1,000?
It depends. It depends on what level license you have. So I think oh my God, this is like a quiz, right? But the lowest you could pull is like, safely is like 2,500 or something. I could be wrong. So if you're a skydiver out there, like, I need to redo my tests. But so let's just call it, for lack of a better
I think I'm
word.
ready for the test.
Which, by the
I
way,
really-
I've gotten 100% on all my tests. But it's like, you don't use it, you lose it. So I like, whenever I study, again, and this is what I did through college and how I got through it, is I procrastinate like hell. But before an exam, I jam pack.
You don't seem that way.
Oh no, I do. I jam pack all of the information in my head. I memorize everything, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to use all this information when it's useful. And then when I don't need it anymore, I'm throwing it out to put more information in my head, right?
Yeah,
Because
you're
our
clear-
brains can
you're
only
clean-
take so
yeah.
much. Anyway, back to the
Can
skydiving thing. So when you jump out, it's a completely different experience. So, but my mistake at this time was letting somebody else pack my parachute. Usually, I pack my own parachute. I'm still like a newbie skydiver. I've had 80 something jumps by myself.
Is that it? That's it?
No, that's literally nothing compared to
Yeah.
like a seasoned skydiver. You have hundreds and thousands of jumps. So for me, I'm literally considered a baby. I've had 80 jumps. And but when I'm trying to pack in my jumps, you want to like ideally get like 5 or more jumps, 4 or 5 more jumps in a day to get your money's worth out of like renting a skydiving rig.
Yeah.
You want to just, because for me, it takes me like an hour to pack my chute because I'm still so new. But I trust myself. When I pack it, I know it's good. But I had one of my friends pack it for me, and he ended up like not packing the slider correctly.
Fuck that, dude.
So the slider,
What the fuck?
so the slider is this thing where it like allows the parachute to open up smoothly. It kind of like catches the wind to
Right.
let the parachute open up like this beautiful
kinda like a pocket,
thing.
and it-
Because he packed the slider wrong, this jump I was doing like a tracking jump, which is like specifically you're like going 100 something miles per hour through the air going straight. So you're moving in a forward motion
Tracking.
like 100 tracking. And then I was like so excited
know the
tracking.
lingo.
That's cool. That's cool that you do. So I look at my altimeter and I'm like, oh shit, it's time to pull. Right? Because I'm like,
That's what you
I
did?
just-
You weren't even tracking it? You were just
well,
like,
no,
oh,
no,
shit,
I was
fuck.
tracking, and then
God
I look
damn it,
at the
I'm
thing,
late.
I'm like, oh my god, I'm late. I should probably pull. So because it was also half my mistake because I should have gone back to like this position where
Right.
you catch the air, and so you kind
Right.
of slow
You kinda
yourself
slow
down.
yourself down, yeah.
So you're dropping
Spread your
back.
legs, like
Not
you
spread your-
legs,
yeah.
but like
Yeah.
like
This thing. Yeah, so then, but I didn't. I was moving in a forward motion. I was
You're
like,
tracking.
oh, fuck, I gotta pull. So I pulled.
Arms are back.
So yeah, so I'm going forward, and now imagine getting
that's the
pulled
fastest
back.
way. Yeah.
No, but it's so bad because you're moving forward, and now you're getting yanked back. And then on top of that, because my slider wasn't
Force
packed.
is fucking ridiculous.
The force is insane. It literally, so I was going like this, and then my body just like folds like a taco. Like I literally touched my toes, and I just hear my neck and my back crack. Like I hear, and then I just passed out. I just see stars because I just like went like this and
Yeah.
then went up.
Yeah.
The next thing I know, I like
course
come
you'll see
to. I
stars.
don't even know how much time has passed, but
Of
I'm
course
like,
you'll see stars. You're skydiving.
I know, right? I do want to go in there. There's some guy who did jump from the atmosphere, and that was insane. I forgot who it was. but-
Yeah, I saw Red Bull sponsored.
Yes,
that.
I'm like, I want to be a Red Bull
Or
athlete.
the guy
one of
that
these
jumped
days.
without a parachute.
Yes, that's insane. But he
wait.
had to have really good accuracy to land in this. It was a
Yeah,
giant
and the
net,
fucking tent.
but up
And
there
the
was,
flip.
That was
And
a,
the
yes,
flip
and
because
get
you
the
had a
flip
fucking
right.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, if you go forward,
Yeah, you're done. Oh my god, that was insane. But yeah, so I came to and I was so disoriented. And it's really scary because
you came to while you're still.
while I was under my canopy. So I'm like looking around like, okay, first of all, my first thought was find the drop zone because I don't want to land. Like there's the freeway, there's all the electrical lines. Like when you're like, you have no choice. If you're so far away, you have to find a safe place, open land to land in.
Yeah.
So I'm like looking around. I have no idea where the hell the drop zone is. And I'm like, okay, so I'm doing 360s. I'm like piloting my thing, like where the hell is it? And then I finally see the drop zone because it was at Skydive Paris. And it's like Skydive Paris's drop zone looks like a little triangle. There's like the runway and then there's like these two things. That's how like a landmark that we're taught to memorize. So I see it like so far away and I'm like, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to make it there, you know? So I just like try to save air, you know, right? So there's a way you can like pilot your canopy to not kill a lot of altitude. So I did that and I was like, okay, I'm going to just try to float towards that as close as possible.
Fuck.
And when you land with a parachute, you have to do this landing pattern, right? To be predictable for the other jumpers so that they can see, okay, they don't like crash into you. You just have to basically have a predictable pattern when you're landing. And so I didn't have enough space to do that. I basically barely landed at the edge of the drop zone. So I just like came in and I was like, okay, I made it safely. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm probably done for the day. I need to, I actually wanted to jump again, but my friends were like, no, don't jump. Like, just like call it a day, jump another day, and go to a chiropractor. So that's what I did. I like went to a chiropractor, like the one who actually sees a lot of skydivers.
Fucking brave, dude.
And yeah, so that one was scary because just the fact of waking up and I'm in the air by myself, and I was like, I don't know where to land.
That's insane. So then convince me that I should be doing this.
No, okay. I mean, it's still, again, the pros completely outweigh the cons, right? Yeah. It is the most incredible experience, especially when you're under canopy. It's like so peaceful.
Paris is 15,000.
Paris is like 13.5. 13.5. Yeah. So, yeah, I can't even explain it. Like, I always get like not emotional, but I'm like up there and I'm always so grateful. Like after I pull because when you jump out and like, you're free falling, that whole thing is kind of just like intense. Like,
what's the cost? What's it usually run?
To
do the class and get your license?
Okay, so for your first AFF class, I think it's about like $300, and you can jump out the same day. So you don't even
by yourself.
Yes. So it's a common misconception that people are always like asking me, how many jumps do you need to have before you could jump by yourself?
See,
0.
Monterey. What I remembered last, and again, this was like 10 plus years, is I got mad because I did it like 4 times randomly. Randomly. The first time I did, I was drunk. Fucking.
That's fine.
I was in San Francisco with a good friend of mine. We met some chicks, and these chicks were like, "We're going to Monterey and going to go skydiving." We're like, "All right, let's fucking go to the beach
I got
and
some
drink."
balls. I'll show you.
So we went to the beach, drank, and then in the morning we got some breakfast, and then we got some more booze, and then we went to the skydiving.
I'm surprised you didn't throw up on your tandem.
Oh, not at all.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
They tell me.
Not at all. It was fucking perfect.
People
the
like shit
only
their pants,
the only
too.
thing that did happen is I paid because money was like different back then. I paid for the 15,000, but they put me on the 18,000. I was like,
you got lucky.
Score. Yeah.
Win.
But drunk and then smoked so many cigarettes. It was fucking ridiculous. Like I had a carton of cigarettes that day. Anyways, so that was the first time. Then the second, third. Anyways, but when I found out how much it cost for the course, it was like $1,500 at that time. And what it included 6 jumps. And
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, the first 2 you jump with 2 people. 2 people are next to you.
Yes,
and then
that's
the
true.
third and fourth one, it's with 1 person, and then the 5th and 6th one, you're
by yourself. That's right, because I was just telling you the first jump, which is the 2 people next to you. So if they included the whole 6, because you need 7 jumps in total to get your license. 7, yeah.
7, yeah.
So 7 AFF jumps. So that's with an instructor. And then like the 6th one is like when you like curl up into a ball and they literally kick you out of the plane, because the lesson there is that you have to be unstable. So you have to be like going frantically around, and then you have to learn how to stabilize yourself after being unstable. That one was really fun.
That one actually sounds fun.
But 1,500 isn't bad. Yeah, that's about right. So
and then again, this was 10 plus years. So it sounds like it's the same price.
So after that, you have to technically, to get your A license, you need 25 jumps. So all of your tandem jumps will count towards that 25. But you do need 7 AFF, like with instructors. They'll be in your ears. They'll be like, the first time you do jump. So again, when I was saying that it's common misconception that you need to have previous jumps. No, you can literally have no experience jumping, never have done tandem or anything like that. Take the class, and then that if the wind conditions and like conditions are permitting, they'll let you jump that same day out of an airplane. That's amazing. It sounds insane, but like there are
that's how safe it is.
That's how safe it is. Yeah. You have comms. There are 2 instructors that jump out with you, and if you freak out and forget to pull your chute, they pull it out for you. And like the chute is so big, they basically compare it to like a bus versus like a car. So you don't even have to try to land. Like you're literally floating down, and then you're just gonna
just for the people that've never done skydiving. What that means is a bigger parachute catches more wind, and when it catches more wind, you don't even have to really maneuver. Versus when you watch the professionals or athletic people do it, they have more like maneuvering style controlling. Yeah, like, and those drop faster.
Yeah, so you kind of just drop on the ground. You still have to maneuver it. Like you still have to find the drop zone. Sounds and stuff like that. Manure.
Like what? What did you say?
I know, the English language is such an interesting thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that.
That's cool. I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look into it. I questioned it a few times.
Jump. I do want to come back. It's just I'm saving money for a rig.
And do like a YouTube and do a video documented and everything else. What's the future for you? What's next? What's on your Your fucking list of.
I actually want to do more stunts. So like I was saying a little bit earlier, I started getting into like stunt doubling and stunt writing maybe like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but I started
Very exciting, very dangerous.
I write it. I write it. I started writing professionally, maybe like 2017. I first did a commercial for Suzuki. That was like my very first thing.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was for the Suzuki SV650. So it was really cool. It was such a fun bike to ride. I accidentally wheelied it on because it's so torquey. Actually,
Accidentally. Yeah.
no, yeah, on camera. But the guys loved it. But you're supposed to like you're totally not supposed to do that. But they're like, oh well, when the light turns green, you need to just take off and like ride aggressively. So I was like, okay. So I took off and I didn't realize, and it was my first gig, so I was like so excited. But I like did this wheelie, and they're like, "Oh, that's so amazing! Of
Don't do
course
it
we
again."
can't use it. We can't use this footage. Don't do that again." But that was really cool, and I was like, "Can I have the footage for my own personal thing?" But anyway,
Did
I
you
never
get
got
it?
it. No, I didn't.
Fuckers.
I know, but it's hard once things come into production. They get so busy, and like I'm not trying to like bug them. Sometimes when you make
Bug
really
'em.
good friends with, like some of the editors or the videographers or whoever, like they will give you some footage, but technically they really can't because until the thing comes into production and stuff like that.
Well, it's
then-
usually so it's so big, it's bigger than them, and that film goes
Right,
to their
right.
editors, and that editor
Exactly.
goes to that company, and it's like
Yeah, so future for me, I still want to, continue inspiring and influencing people on social media. That whole thing, I never like thought that I would be doing that, but it kind of naturally
in
happened.
general, all people, women more than men, or everybody
All
equally.
people.
Yeah.
I do have an emphasis on females. Like if
LBDDYQ.
LGBTQ,
Yeah,
the whole thing. No, like
LMNOP.
for me, I'm like anybody, but
The
again,
human race.
because I'm a female who I do recognize that we go through a completely different set of struggles when it comes to learning how to ride motorcycles and doing like crazy athletic extreme things, right? Like again, it was very, very hard for me through the years to gain, respect, like some sort of respect in the community, right? So I will go out of my way when like females reach out to me. But, in general, I do want to inspire like male and female and just anybody and everybody. And it's not just motorcycles either. And that's why my Instagram page is so crazy and weird. Like I know I could have grown so much more if I had just stuck to like a niche, right? Like just
Right.
like motorcycles. But I get like a lot of follows and then a lot of unfollows because people are, I post a lot of unexpected things. Like you could find skydiving, motorcycles, snowboarding stuff, like the casual thirst traps, like so many different things, like comedy, like
Yeah, it's intricate.
yes,
The
I have
skits,
so many
yeah, the comedy, the
skits,
skits,
like
everything.
everything, like on my page, and that's the thing. Like I never did this because for a business. I did this for me and for like what I believed in, right? Like I know I could be making so much more money doing other things. Like I could have started an OnlyFans. I could have done so many different things, like just stuck to motorcycles and stuck to like moto vlogging, for example, right? Like if I stuck to that, I know it would just blow up so much more because people know what to expect on my page and things like that. But I feel like in the long run, if I started doing that, like it would just not be as genuine, right? Because I'm not going to have that much fun. I get really bored easily with things.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's why I'm always doing all these different hobbies and activities because I'm like, okay, but the one constant has been motorcycles. But again, I want my content and everything to just be as genuine and as me as possible so that like people can relate with it, right? So
Yeah, of course.
So in a sense, I guess my niche would be like living an active lifestyle, like just you'll even find like cooking stuff. Like I have like a whole Mizziel's cooking adventure that like I love to cook, and I cook for a lot of my friends, and I have a whole little series where people are always like, oh my God, what are you gonna make next? And I like making challenges for myself. So I'll like cook all these different dishes and then post that on my stories and stuff, or like workout stuff. I used to be in the fitness industry.
Your social media, like when you started putting yourself more involved in the social media, like where did that influence come from? Or did you take like a social media class? Or
No,
profession?
never. It just, again,
Well, when did you put yourself? It just happened natural?
Yeah, so I started like in 2009 or 10, and I just started posting first like my very personal stuff, like my dog and, like random stuff when Instagram
Right.
started. And then I noticed I started getting traction with me posting like me with my bike because I started riding motorcycles. And at the time, again, like in 2010, there were not many females at all. Like it exponentially grew through the years, especially with social media. Like it's insane how many girls ride now. And I really love seeing that. Like honestly, that's what I wanted since I was back in 2010. I started a girl group, maybe 2014, called Redline Ravens, and all the whole main the main like goal for us was to inspire other females to ride, and through that, like I feel like I just grew. When I started Redline Ravens with one of my best friends, she unfortunately passed away in 2017 riding.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, she was an amazing rider. Like I still ride to this day for her and stuff like that. But we started it and then added a third member, and we actually blew up on social media. We were like the only 3 girls who were riding track, riding canyons on sport bikes. Like we were the only girl group. So that's why we blew up, and that's how my social media kind of kickstarted. And then, but before that, it started going because I noticed that people started liking like me, like a girl riding on motorcycles. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, instead of just me, why not 3? Like if there are 3 girls, like that's gonna be even more crazy, you know? So then we blew it from there, and then all this stuff happened, and then I started collaborating with other influencers. Like I made a video with this, you know, King Batch. He's like an actor, comedian guy. I made a video with him, and it turned viral. Like we got reposted on World Star, and he became one of my friends, and I taught him how to ride a motorcycle. And after we got reposted on his, he had like millions of followers at the time. That's like, it helped my page grow a lot, especially getting reposted on World Star and stuff. Yeah. So then, you know, and it just kind of snowballed, affected since then. Like I've been doing my social media page for like 7 years now, like seriously, you know, more seriously actually. But yeah, and I've never bought followers or anything like that. So all of my followers have been very organic and everything. And again, I've lost so many because some didn't like the skydiving content. Some were like, oh, I came to follow you for motorcycle stuff. But I'm like, I'm sorry, you're not gonna just get motorcycle stuff. Some people didn't like me showing enough skin, because I would get like more traditional, like what's it called, like conventional viewers or whatever, and then here I am in a bikini or like in lingerie or something.
What
you know,
the fuck
like
are you doing?
They're like, you know, and I'm like, no, but again, I'm not gonna not be me. Like I'm gonna post the thing. I'm like comfortable with my femininity. I'm comfortable with my body. I like go to the gym and I work hard, you know, and so I'm okay. I'm comfortable with wearing like a bikini and posting it. It's not a big deal, you know, like I'm not gonna ever get naked, you know what I mean? Yeah, I want to teach other females to have that self-confidence, you know. Obviously that's not all,
but you
that
work
matters.
On it. That's the
I work on it. It's not like I go get plastic surgery or anything,
right.
Which again, I don't judge it. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, there absolutely. I'm not opposed to that at all. But again, like for me, I am like, here, look, work for what you got, be proud of it, and whatever, you know, whatever way, even if you did get plastic surgery, by all means, I enjoy seeing whatever, like I could appreciate a beautiful female.
Whoa!
Oh, wait, that's a whole nother.
Never heard of a female.
Oh my God, female, like body, female, like that's fucking a whole new like fetish, guys.
That's a female that like.
Yeah, a female.
Yeah, this can go really.
I know this could go very weird in like 2.5 seconds.
Female.
Yeah, female. Sorry, that was.
No,
really
I
funny.
get it.
I could appreciate a beautiful, sexy female body.
Or a female.
Or a female. Yeah. Whatever that looks like.
But that's usually in anything. Even a male, like if there's a dude that's fucking ripped.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
dude, that's like,
abs and arms are the best
like,
quality in a guy.
Yeah, like I'm going to be like, yo, bro, that's fucking amazing.
It's the V. That'll get any girl. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's dope. I think we covered everything.
How long has it been?
Oh, dude.
What are we at?
2 hours.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, that's gonna be really long. I feel really bad.
2 hours? No, not at all. No, I think almost all my episodes have been 2 hours.
Yeah, I was worried. Like, oh my God, what am I gonna talk about? But
no, I'm telling you, this thing can go so much more. Okay, we know where you're going. We know this. I'm gonna do the skydiving next. Next time we catch up, we'll do the skydiving. Mm-hmm.
Where I'm going, see me in some more stunt stuff. So like movies, I want to like be a stunt actress. So I want to like.
Right now, the movie and you like the minorities,
are being favored. Right. No.
So favored. This is the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the time. Like right now, it's just the fucking time.
Well, I just had my first fight scene, like motorcycle fight scene, on a show on Amazon Prime. Yeah. And then
That's so
I've been like a
fucking cool.
recurring stunt double on a Disney show. I don't know if I'm really allowed to say it yet, but yeah, you could see me out on Disney Plus. I'm riding motorcycles. I'm like doing other things like stunts and stuff. So it's cars, motorcycles, and it's like
Pretty
fighting
soon is
stuff.
explosions and shit.
Yeah, I eventually want to do that because I practice like doing high falls and like stair falls and all sorts of like stunt industry stuff. But I figured, while I'm young and able, I'm gonna do all like the modeling, all the like cutesy stuff that I could do, make my money. But I can't do this forever, right? I'm gonna get old. I'm gonna get like whatever. So what can I do to like ensure like a career or something? Stunts is the way to be because I can still drive cars, not have to be on camera or be on camera,
Or
whatever.
bikes,
But
or whatever the
some
case
of the
is.
old, like the best stunt people in the world are like older.
Yeah, they've been doing it forever.
Anyway,
That's
2
fucking
hours.
awesome. No, it doesn't matter. You're
I told you I
awesome.
could talk, I could still talk forever.
No, I know. And
Yeah.
you know what? I would love to catch up with you later on. Let's just sign off with where can people find you? What's your website? What's your Instagram? What's your preference of getting contacted?
It's just Mizziel. It's Mizziel. Again, it's spelled funny. I do have a website. It's mizziel.com, but I need to update it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank
And
you
thank
so
you for
much for having
hosting.
me. And thank you for listening, everybody.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Until next time.
Until next time.